भी बात हुई थी उस समय ये इंटरेस्टेड रहते थे। लक्ष्मी जी है, विनोद है, वो अपनी
ये काफी अच्छे
ये तो ये इनका ही था कि कहते थे हाँ हमें इंग्लिश को बुला लो। ये मेरे से जूनियर क्लासमेट था।
भाई ये कह रहे हैं कि सब कैटेगरी के जो लोग है ना वो उससे लाइफ का जो मजा है ना वो यही है।
आपने यहाँ से किया कि डिपार्टमेंट से?
हाँ सर।
गुड मॉर्निंग सर।
हेलो गुड मॉर्निंग। बहुत बढ़िया हुई।
अवार्ड किसी को दिया जाए टॉयलेट वाले जो है ना।
Respected dignitaries in philosophy, thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today on the occasion of first Professor Pahi Memorial Lecture. Professor Biswambhar Pahi was a scholar, thinker, philosopher and teacher of unmatched fervor. Professor Pahi received his basic training in philosophy and logic at University of Utkal and Allahabad. He received advanced training in logic at University of Yale under Professor F.B. Fitch. Before doing his graduate work at University of Yale, he taught at University of Guwahati. After his graduate work, he taught at Central Washington State College and then at University of Notre Dame. He then served for more than 2 decades as Professor of Logic and Philosophy of Science at University of Rajasthan. Professor Pahi's masterpiece on Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika is his celebrated work Vaisheshik Padarth Vyavastha Ka Paddhati Moolak Vibhav. The book was felicitated by Shankar Puraskar of Durla Foundation and Best Book Award of ICPR. He also translated Raghunath Shiromani's Padartha Tattva Nirupanam from Sanskrit to Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika. Its translation in Hindi in 3 volumes and also the editing of Siddhanta Sant Lok Prakash and important details on Nyaya. He authored 2 monographs on advanced logic. Was complimented in duty by his uncompromising logical rigor. As a visionary of the research center, presently CAS at Department of Philosophy, University of Rajasthan, he ensured an honest utilization of material and intellectual resources. The dream envisioned by him for publication of qualitative and original, namely University of Rajasthan Philosophy Series, University of Rajasthan Foundational Studies, University of Rajasthan Studies in Indian Philosophy, Journal of Foundational Research Series. As the tradition in our department ordains, we begin.
Shadevi Jagadambika Bhagavati Sri Rajarajeshwari Vidya Karunanidhi Shubhadari Puja Silakreyase Anandamaanandakaram Prasunnam Jnana Swarupam Nidabodharupam Yogindra Vidya Bhavarogavedyam Srimad Gurum Nityamaham Bhajami Srinadhadi Gurutrayam Ganapatim Peethatrayam Bhairavam Siddhokam Gatukatrayam Padirgam Dutikramam Mandalam Veerantashtatatuskasartinavadam Veeravali Pantakam Sriman Bhajini Mantaraj Sritam Bande Gurur Mandaram Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah Bande Guru Padadvandam Avam Manashkotaram Raktasu Prabhamishnam Tarjam Teipuram Narayanam Padmabhum Vasishtam Satin Siddhatputra Parashadanta Vyasam Sukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Makachasishyam श्री शंकराचार्य मथाश्री पद्म पादं च हस्तामगतं च शिष्यं तं त्रोटकं वार्तिकतारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमहनतोऽस्मि यत्पादपङ्कजस्मृणात् यस्य नामदपादपि न्यूनं कार्यं भवेत् पूर्णं तं वन्दे साम्बवीश्वरम्.
I will now request intellectuals on the dais to rise for the lighting of lamp and offer floral.
थोड़ा फ्लैश को तो हटाओ सर थोड़ा
I now request Dr. Nyāya and
माँ भारती के चरणों में शत प्रणाम. Namaskar, the most respected professor of not just our department but also philosophy fraternity of the world, Professor B. Pahi. He was not just an excellent teacher and genuine scholar but also an original philosopher and an institution builder. We are very much honored and fortunate that the first Professor Pahi Memorial Lecture is being delivered by Professor Arindam Chakrabarti sir. Professor Chakrabarti needs no introduction in the midst of the philosophy community, and also to give even a brief introduction to Professor Chakrabarti, we need an entire session for his introduction alone. Professor Chakrabarti has been a fellow at colleges in Oxford and Cambridge. We have been a professor at Calcutta University, University of Delhi, Montana University, Stony Brook University, and Lenney Distinguished Professor at University of Hawaii for more than 2 decades. A worthy student of eminent philosopher such as Professor P.F. Strawson and Michael Gummidge. He has publications from reputed publishing houses such as Oxford, Routledge, Bloomsbury, and Penn. He is one of the few Indian origin philosophers whose articles have been appeared in reputed journal Mind. The scholarship of Professor Chakrabarti is wide and ranges from Nyaya to analytical tradition, Buddhism and Vedanta to Kant and Wittgenstein. On the behalf of the Department and University of Rajasthan, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. We welcome Professor Chakrabarti. We are equally blessed to have our midst Professor Srinivasa Varshney, sir, who is distinguished and prodigious scholar of Sanskrit tradition. Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika Vyakaran. Professor Varakhedi has been an acclaimed student of Professor Pahi. Professor Varakhedi has been the Vice Chancellor at Kavi Kulguru Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtek, Maharashtra, and presently the Vice Chancellor of the Sanskrit University, Central University, New Delhi. Sir, I extend my warm welcome to Professor Varakhedi. We are happy and honored by the presence of Professor Sachidananda Mishra, the Member Secretary, Indian Council of Philosophical Research, Ministry of Education, New Delhi. Professor Mishra, the Member Secretary, ICTR, Professor of Indian Philosophy at BHU, the cultural capital of India. He is an eminent authority on Nyaya, Vyakaran and Indian knowledge system. Professor Mishra has also been an eminent scholar of Professor B. Pahi philosophical ideas. I extend my warm welcome to Professor Mishra, and I also take this opportunity to thank him for the constant patronage of ICTR, which our department has been enjoying. It would be very inappropriate, but at the same time customary, to welcome our head of the institution, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor Rajeev Jain, who is an excellent scholar of commerce and management and has taken out this precious time for the lecture today. In the midst of his immense busyness as today academic council is going on. I welcome you, sir, and I express my gratitude to you for your constant support and encouragement. I am also honored Professor S.L. Sharma, sir, who is the Dean, Social Science Department, an eminent scholar of sociology. I extend my heartfelt welcome to you, sir. I also extend my warm greetings and welcome to all luminaries and legacy of the scholars present in the today event. Welcome to all of you. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Good morning to all. The task that has been deputed to me, first, it is not an easy task to speak on someone towards whom one fails to be neutral emotionally. And second, you lose your speech when you have to voice your thoughts on your guru in front of luminaries like Professor Chakrabarti, Professor Varakhedi and Professor Mishra, and also my guru Sthani professors who have joined us online, such as Professor Raghunath Ghosh, Professor Dilip Mohant, and others. So I have decided to make my task easier by reading out a piece of reminiscence on Professor Pahi, which I had written 2 years ago. Though it may not be new to some of you, as it appeared in the journal of ICPR, and some of you may have already read it. But since the objective behind having a word on Professor Pahi is to introduce him to those who do not have much acquaintance with him, reading out this old piece may not be entirely fruitless. This reminiscence was entitled Professor Biswambhar Pahi, logician who carried a burden of poetic consciousness. The winters this year in Jaipur were unusually harsh and long, and they ended with a harsher strike, for with their end they took away the philosopher king who ruled our hearts with awe for ages. And as in the fall the trees shed their leaves, making room for new, the thinker who maintained all his life a relentless reminder about the transience of the plane of existence, simultaneously with an ever anew zeal for life, shed the present plane of existence for another this spring. Professor Biswambhar Pahi, affectionately called Pahi Sahab, or reverentially called Acharya Pahi, had an academic project for him that defied a lifetime. And when the insatiable nature of his academic and textual pursuits, which coupled with his commitment to completeness and with his slow pace was pointed to him, he would smile with a heart-conquering innocence and declare that he used to treat himself as an immortal being. The first impressions that he imprinted upon my inner recesses were not that of a logician. I first met him in March 2014, a month after I had joined the university at Jaipur. I hesitated in meeting him owing to the very raw training in logic which I had. Fortunately and surprisingly, he hardly talked about logic. He left me for the remaining of the meeting awestruck with his mellifluous recital and submerged interpretation of Valmiki, Kalidas and Tagore. The first meeting ended with an agreement between two of us that the older of us would train the other in Navvinyaya and advanced logic. His training sessions started not before the next year in summers. His careful and gradual unfolding of the very conceptual architecture of history of Indian philosophy challenged and altered completely one's approach towards it. With a magic wand, he would easily bring a Shuna shape, Gautam, Raghunath Shiromani back to life. My brief journey with him, so far as duration of time goes, was nevertheless long enough if intensity were the decisive parameter for measuring time. His written works were far less vital and forceful than his unwritten thoughts. And a combination of these two gave me an idea of his unfinished project with Indian philosophy. His originality and rigor in restructuring of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika systems could be seen as a new model for furtherance of contemporary Indian philosophy, insofar as his fundamental quest in his masterpiece, Vaisheshik Padarth Vyavastha Ka Paddhati Mulak Vimarsh, which by the way is an accidental book insofar as it was originally intended to be an introduction to his translation of Raghunath Shiromani's Padartha Tattva Nirupanam, but was subsequently brought out as an independent work. So his fundamental quest in his writings pertaining to Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika has been in seeking room for conciliation between thinker-centric creativity and system-centric commitment. Is opening the gates of the closed church of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika systems, to quote a phrase from Professor Gokhale, which in simple words means a remodeling of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika had two basic goals. One, restraining or secularizing Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika within the bounds of sense, and two, to uphold the Vedic Vedanta or philosophy of life. Doing so, he found the notion of an eternal and substantial self, factuality of law of karma, the notion of vishesha, the idea of God, etc., inconsistent with the methodic principles of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika. It remains unobserved, though, that he accepted some of these on the demands of practical reason. Two of his endeavors with Indian philosophy remained unfinished, or rather unstarted. These were a commentary on Panini's grammar from the perspective of formal logic and a verse-by-verse hermeneutic upon the Vedic corpus. His Protestant objective to reform Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika and classical Indian philosophy at large, so as to facilitate what he termed as natural evolution of a system, remains one of the most understated and at the same time misunderstood attempts in contemporary Indian philosophy. Ascertainment of his philosophical position made orthodox scholars of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika term him a Prachanna Charvak, Professor Mishra does so. He denied these charges of being a conjoiner of materialism and Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika by pointing out that for him the I or cognitive attributes are not derivable from physical forces. His scholarship of Sanskrit, Greek and Bangla literature complemented the stringently positivist Nyāyic. With the Kranta Drishti of poets, he saw through and propagated the organic, interconnected, life-affirming Vedic philosophy of life, which impelled on every member of human race, in his words, an insurmountable toll of dharma via the pathways of both poetic and theoretic consciousness. What also remains lesser known is his deviation from the lineage of Ingolds and Matilal, insofar as he attempted a rephrasing of Western formal logic in the jargon of Navya Nyaya. His lifelong attempts to relate the two traditions of logic may be seen as an extension of comparative philosophy, something that dominated the department at Jaipur ever since Professor P.T. Rajan. In formal logic, an associate of the legendary F.B. Fitch and G.H. Von Wright, his journey started with implicational calculi, and later his primary concern was what he termed as the Jankov's problem, which was subsequently developed as the bridging problem. It is difficult for me to do justice to him and to myself in attempting a reminiscence of his persona or academic life. Let me then just try to offer a small gallery of pictures that get painted pell-mell around when I remember him. Clad in dhoti and kurta, with his brown karakuli hat, sometimes as soft as a dewdrop and sometimes hard as a rock, he personified Bhavabhutis Vajradati Kathorani Vriduni Kusumadati. Talking to the plants of his garden and pillars of the portico of the department building, he used to make Kalidas's Patumna Prathamam and Ishopnishad's Sarvatma Darshan alive, preaching to everyone around the burden of poetic consciousness. His style of conversation, though didactic and completely un-Socratic, always had a Socratic modesty deeply ingrained. In almost every episode of his conversation, he and his audience did not lack clue of time, but actually transcended it. About a month before his send-off, one night he suddenly summoned me to his home, which would turn out to be my last visit to him. He narrated his plan to see Jagannath, to read Rigved at the seashores of Puri and visit his native village in Jajpur. He recited to me from the first mandal the woo of Shunah shape on being sacrificed. Kasya nunam kadamasya amritanam. Symbolic it was of his own unfathomable love for life and his scorn for hereafter. As he approached to bid me adieu for the night, he kept waving his hands until I disappeared from sight. The academic and departmental commitments that he obtained from me do not deserve a mention here. As I tread on in the relatively tranquil research center of our department, and I beseech the pillars of the building which he had designed, I am reminded of Shamamishyati me shoka. But then the bard reminds, Artho hi kanya parakiya. In a sense, the present life appears to be a daughter meant finally to go to someone else. The hereafter is parakiya here. May our daughter find serenity in the other plane of existence. Now, when I reflect upon my own life, I finally find something about which I may take some pride in myself. I have been the last student of a teacher who was not a sage, but one who martyred much of his life for his students. My Father, do not rest. Do not allow us to rest. Give us strength to fulfill our promise. Your heirs, your descendants, your stewards, the guardians of your dreams, the fulfillers of this department's destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for presenting before us a panorama of ideas and persona of Professor Pahi. Now I invite Professor Rajeev Jain, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Rajasthan, to address us. Though it is customary that chair speaks at end, but an academic council meeting is scheduled, so Honorable Vice Chancellor has to leave us early.
On the dais, Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, distinguished professor, Hawaii University, USA, Professor Shrinivasa, Varakhedi, Vice Chancellors, Central Sanskrit University, Professor Sachinanand Mishraji, Member Secretary, Philosophy, people who are connected with joint online and offline colleagues and dear students. It is a matter of great happiness and pride that the Department of Philosophy is organizing first Professor Biswambhar Pahi memorial lecture under the aegis of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, Ministry of Education, Government of India, New Delhi. The Department of Philosophy is one of the most vibrant seats of learning in the campus. Until recently, the department was one of the 4 centers of advanced studies in philosophy in the country. The department brings out a prestigious research journal, the Journal of Fundamental Research, a peer-reviewed UGC care journal. Many distinguished philosophers such as Professor Ernest Sona, Professor G. H. Vaughan, Professor J. Garfield, and others have published their research articles in this journal. In the past, several great professors of international repute have blessed the department, such as Professor P.T. Raju, Professor Dayakrishna Ji, Pandit Mishra Ji, Professor Ramchandra Gandhi Ji, Professor Rajendra Swarup Bhatnagar, and others. Almost them, Professor Biswambhar Pahi had a special place. Professor Pahi joined the department as an associate professor in the year of 1974 and was evaluated as Professor of Logic and Philosophy of Science in 1980. Prior to this, he worked at University of Domain. After his superannuation in 1996, he has given an extension and continued to serve our university till 2001. He continued to work. Professor Pahi has gained immense as a logician worldwide. He served as a coordinator of UGC Center for Advanced Studies in Philosophy from 1984 to 2001. Under his leadership, the center emerged a prominent research center in the country. Professor Pahi has gained eminence as a sincere teacher, gifted scholar, original philosopher, administrator, and a wonderful human being. The university campus is still enriched with Pahi scholarship and eminence. It is much fulfilling to see that the department has instituted an annual memorial lecture to honor the scholarship of Professor Biswambhar Pahi. It is also a very proud moment for us that Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, a distinguished professor of philosophy who has served at several reputed campuses worldwide, and he is an original philosopher in his own right. He is delivering the first memorial lecture. Equally delighting is the fact that Professor Varakhedi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Sanskrit University, and Professor Satyendra Mishra, Member Secretary, ICPA, Ministry of Education, are gracing this event. I hope that these lectures will go a long way in initiating a fresh dialogue on the philosophical contribution of Professor Biswambhar Pahi and also the philosophical tradition of Jaipur and University of Rajasthan. I also have that a fresh understanding of Pahi philosophy and also such aspects of Indian philosophy will emerge out. In the last, I once again congratulate the department to start a good academic activity. Here, our head, Professor Arvind Vikram Singh, who has got 2 awards recently. One is Pranavanand Darshan Puraskar, Akhil Bharatiya Darshan Parishad, Bhagwan Buddha Puraskar, Bharatiya Dalit Academy, Nai Delhi. With these words, because I have to go to one function before the academic council, so I take your permission और मैं क्षमा याचना भी करता हूँ कि मैं इतने स्कॉलर्स के बीच
It is a matter of great pride that I had Professor Arvind Vikram Singh has received 2 prestigious awards: Swami Pranavananda Darshan Puraskar by Akhil Bharatiya Darshan Parishad and Mahatma.
हंस पद्मासने राजमाना सदा वल्लकी लेखनी पुस्तिका मंडिता विश्ववीणा जया प्राणशब्दायिता तामा भारती सर्वशुक्लां भजे वर्णे शब्दे वाक्यबंधे निबंधे यस्याकांक्षा योग्यता सत्तिरूपा शक्तिर्भावान् लीलया मेलयन्ति सीतारामं तं गुरुं भावयामि। Human beings from the very start of society till today
सभी लोग मोबाइल को साइलेंट मोड में कर लें कृपया।
human beings from the beginning of society till today in the busy internet and Facebook era have had relationship issues, troubles with relationship. Think of the relationship trouble that Bharata had with his own mother. He didn't trust his own mother. And of course, there were relationship troubles, huge ones, between Draupadi and Yudhishthira. Draupadi openly called him a eunuch. And I need not give examples of frequently married and frequently divorced couples in the contemporary era. And no point just blaming the West. India is full of it. In the 7th, 8th and 9th chapters of Professor Biswambhar Pahi's magisterial magnum opus, which we need to translate first in all the Indian languages.
First in all Indian languages. Very fun.
Bengali, Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil, all of the languages, Malayalam, and then we can gradually translate it to English. Every page has some new insight. In that book, वैशेषिक पदार्थ व्यवस्था का पद्धति मूलक विमर्श, 3 relations admitted by the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika realist, pluralist metaphysicians are discussed in great detail in many places of the book. The relation of contact, samyoga, the relation of India is samavaya, and the very complex and puzzling relation of paryapti, which is most relevant for Indian philosophy of mathematics. Before I get to the relationship troubles, issues with relationship, I want to justify my deliberate shlesha with the word sambandha. I started by talking about human relationships and social relationships. Somebody might feel, I know Professor Pahi would appreciate it because he was as Tarkeshu Karkashadhiya as Kavyeshu Komaladhiya. So it is in poetry that the word Sambandha is used in both senses. Such dry, metaphysical, formal relationships like contact and inherence and paryapti, the relationship, intentional content, vishayata, an awareness and its object is related by vishayata. You would say that's a different sense of relation. It's not. Take some yoga, for example. When in Sankhya, the samyoga between Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and matter, is talked about as the reason why there is this world, because of the what in contemporary philosophy of mind is called the heart problem of how can in this material grey matter of a soft quilt like, the gyras and sulcus of the cerebrum, how can suddenly something as non-material as consciousness, which has no limits in time and space, because I can think about what will happen 20,000 years afterwards, or what happened 20,000 years before. An imagination arises out of this limited space. This is a problem of some yoga. Sankhya tried to solve it, never succeeded. Because there seems to be this inexplicable fact that there is some kind of contact between pure consciousness and material properties of movement and weight and shape and size and color. But Sankhya was no more successful than Descartes later on to show how they can interact. And of course, the problem is not solved by the pineal gland. As a result, this was have practical implications. One funny and extremely accurate definition of yoga, which is so popular now, thanks to the worldwide business of Patanjali, not the author of Mahabharata, but the Haridwar-based business tycoon. And yoga is defined as Pum Prakrityor Viyoga, Yoga Sankhya. Yoga is a kind of viyoga. Why? Because yoga is Chittavritti Nirodha, arresting of the flow and the operations of our restless mind to make it tranquil. But it cannot be made tranquil as long as it is connected to the constantly dynamic, changing Prakriti. In fact, all Chittavritti is a function of Prakriti. And it's all mixed up with consciousness. Our consciousness is mixed up. Why? Because it is in that impossible samyoga between consciousness, Prakriti Purusha Yoga, samyoga, tat samyogasya viyogat yoga. Pum prakrityor samyogasya viyogat yoga. Nivritti. Now you would say, well, that's a very serious matter. But my calling a discussion of the logical issues of Samyoga, Samvaya and Paryapti as relationship troubles, that seems like too much frivolousness. So I want to start with a Sambandha joke that I inherited from Professor Vimal Krishnamurthy Rao, my teacher. In fact, he has put it in a footnote of his Harvard book, Navya Nyaya Doctrine of Negation. All of you know, those who speak Hindi or listen to Hindi, the word for brother-in-law in Hindi is Sambandhi. Am I right? Sambandhi? Yes. Some poet who dislike Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika people goes to the Rajya Sabha, the royal court of Lakshmana Sen, in whose court there were great poets, and expecting some royal grant, he makes up, but he is a philosopher, logician. He is himself a Nyāyika, but he is pretending to give a gali, a kind of abuse to the Nyāyikas by calling them, they are too obsessed with relations. So, Sambandhi, they are like Sava. And here is the poem. I will not explain it. It's fairly complex. And Professor Varakhedi can later on explain the meaning of it, but it's very accurate. Bhavad abhavad yadi nadirikta sambandhi bhi svikriyate padartha janyavinashi pratiyogi shunyam Shri Lakshmana Kshonipatir Yasha Kim. So, first, the relation of contact. Samyog, for example, between individual particles that make up the perceptible material world, one Paramanu and another Paramanu, when they are connected in a particular way, then they together make up a dyad, Dhyanuk. The relation of inherence between wholes and their parts, which are also causes of the whole. The avayavas are also the samvayikara of the avayvi, as well as between universals, jati, qualities, motions, and the substances they are focused on. I don't want to encourage too much quoting of Sanskrit, because very quickly this ability to recite becomes a replacement for understanding. But still, some of these verses are very useful to keep it all together. So, ghatadina, kapalado, dravyeshu, gunakarmano, teshu, jatesh, cha, and cha meaning vishesha, sambandha, samavaya, udahara. Finally, the relation of counting completion by translation of Paryapti. Counting completion. This many and no more, by which number qualities such as two-ness, dvitva, or 36ness, shatringshatva. If you have to enumerate how many ontological realities are admitted in Trika, Kashmir Shaivism, you have to use the number 36, which is the same number as the number of chapters of Natya Shastra. And it is the same number as the number of Andhikas, daily lessons of Tantra Loka. Abhinav Gupta saw that there is a connection between all these 336s. One little technical point. Since Annikas of Tantra Loka 36ness will be all three different 36nesses, because gunas are tokens, they are not repeatable. Okay, so there is a white color inherent in this piece of paper. There is a white color inherent in my pencil, not the same white color. Shuklatva, if you say Shuklarupam, although between these two white colors there is another jati. This may not be so counterintuitive, but when I show you two fingers, as dravyas, substances, they are distinct. These two are not the same substance as these two, right? All of us know that. What about the two-ness in this and the two-ness in this? Even here there is a dvitva. Two-ness, the number. Here also there is dvitva. Are they the same? No. Why? Because the substance is different. But then, I'll go into more detail when I talk about Pariyapti. Between these two, so in the fingers, in the two fingers, and in fact in each of them, there is dvitva sankhya. There is a different dvitva sankhya here. But between these two nesses, there is a common jati, dvitva, and that is two-nessness. Sometimes in typing, and all of you use WhatsApp, so it keeps making corrections. So I want to say, at this point, Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika becomes very nessy, full of nesses. Two-nessness. I know if I write that in WhatsApp, it will correct into messy. But I don't mean messy. There is no mess in Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika. There is a lot of ness. Now, when we think clearly and systematically about the way we experience and talk about the world around us, we are compelled to be ontologically committed to such relationships as samyoga, samavaya and pariyapti, if we have to build a descriptive metaphysics of the world. In his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, Wittgenstein uses the logically imaginative device of asking himself, what are the entities, items and features? For example, is the self one of them? I must mention in a book, if I wrote a book called The World as I Found It, and at the end of the book he says, I can mention everything in that book, but I cannot mention myself. From this, Arvind ji will deduce that Wittgenstein was a Nyāyatmavadi, because there is no entity called I. Jonathan Kaneri has written a very beautiful book called Inwardness. I hope I didn't drive him out. So, in that book there is a chapter, beautiful chapter, on Buddhist philosophy. And it says, to say I is to lie.
To lie.
Is to lie, to say mithya. But then, if we wrote a book called The World as I Found It, do I have to mention samyoga, samavaya and pariyapti? To use Professor Pahi's beautiful phrase, when we abide by the principle of mapping out the world exactly as we apprehend it without any bias to any philosophical school, without any previous training, without reason in interrupting, just looking at the world. Then he says, Yatho-upalabdhi vyavastha nyāya. Yatha upalabhyate tathaiva vyavasthapyate. Professor Varakhedi has been telling me for many years that this is how dualist Vedantins make up their metaphysics. And that is why they are so opposed to non-dualism of Advaita. Because Advaita, non-dualism, is revisionary metaphysics. It changes our common sense view. It says all that you see is all false. Take the truth from the Upanishads or our interpretation of the Upanishads. Madhvacharya on the other hand, Nyāyikas are somewhere in between. Madhvacharya goes to the extreme of saying, you don't understand what the Upanishads are saying unless you interpret it completely compatibly with common sense. And common sense sees different things. Ya iha nana pasyati, not to nana eva. In fact, one Dvaita Vedantin told me that when you say nana eva, as if many, then you are being an Advaita. That really there is no plurality in the world. There is only one. But we see it falsely seeming to be many. So the word evil shows that one who sees the world not really many, but apparently nana evil. What happens to him? According to this Dvaita Vedantin, he told me, he goes from death to death. Who are these people who go to death to death? The Advaitins. Because they don't see nana. If they see nana, then they would have got moksha. But they see only nana evil. This is one interpretation. I'm not swearing by it. But this is why when Vyasatirtha, wrote the book Tarkatanda, people were surprised. Why are you refuting Gangeshan? Both Gangeshan, you are both pluralists, realists. You believe in common sense realism. Why are you refuting each other? Okay. But the Nyāyikas said Nyāyamrita was good because they refuted Advaitins. But Tarkatanda was not good because they refuted us. Right? I was reminded when I listened to this of a statement. A French philosopher, she came to Delhi University when I was a professor in Delhi University. And she asked me, she was invited. She said, what should I speak on in the department? So I said, this department has mostly analytic philosophy. So since you are from France, but although she worked on Sartre and Merleau-Ponty, existentialism and phenomenology, she was also the first French translator of Grundlagen der Arithmetik, so Frege's Foundations. So she was surprised. She said, in India also you have been polluted by this distinction between continental philosophy and analytic philosophy. So I said, don't you believe in that distinction? Because in America you are first asked. Just as in India you are first asked, are you leftist or are you BJP? You have to be one, you cannot be both. Similarly, in America academic philosophy, you are asked, do you do continental French philosophy? Derrida, Sartre? Or are you analytic? And this lady was telling me, why do you fight? And she said something beautiful. She said, why don't you analytic and continental philosophers see that you are both children of Kant?
Both children of God.
Children of Kant. Similarly, you are both Shankara Mishra, Vedaratna, Dvaita Vedanta, Vedojiva. You are both opposed to Advaita Vedanta. You believe in common sense. Why do you fight with each other? But there is good reason for that. Now, but these three relations, which a common sense worldview seems to require, though not just these three, even other relations like Vishayata, and which philosophy departments nowadays do not discuss much, but they should. Swattva Swamitva. Raghunath Shiromani discusses the relationship between a person, Professor Rajendra Mishra, and his car. How are they related? Not always some joke. Professor Rajendra Mishra is not always sitting in the car. He is also not Samaveta in the car. And what is his relationship? This car belongs to him. It's a private property. And Raghunath Shiromani discusses this in Padartha Tattva Nirupana. And he says, Swattvam Nama Swatantra Padartha. It's a different relationship. So, if somebody writes a bigger book on the relationship issues in Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika, they should write about Sattva Swamitva. Because whether there is any, you would say, that's not a philosophical topic, Raghunath Shiromani, it's a Dharma-shastra topic. No. What can be more deeply philosophical than the first verse of Ishopanishad? And it is right under your nose that the first verse of Ishopanishad discusses many relationships, and one of them is the Swattva Swamitva relationship. Isn't that clear? Like daylight. Kasya Swit Dhanam. Kasya. This Shashti, this apostrophe S, or this relationship of possession, this is so deep that Shankara interprets Ma Kritha Kasya Swit Dhanam in two ways. First interpretation, do not covet anyone's other people's property. Okay? I say that when you go to eat in a restaurant, and the restaurant has a long menu, night is getting, deeper night. So you can't decide. So you tell your waiter, whatever they are having, I want that. You should remember, do not covet other people's meals. But Shankara's second interpretation is that Ma Gridha, do not be greedy. Stop. Full stop. Athava, Shankara says, or Ma Gridha, that's all. Katham Ma Gridha? Kasya Swit Dhanam. It is a rhetorical question. Na kasya chiti. Property does not belong to anyone. It's like the Marxist abolition of private property. And Shankara will agree. You'll have to call Shankara one of those leftists. Because all the rightist politics is based on private property, including your Aadhaar card. What do you own? Where are you? What is your address? If you say I have no address, you can't be a citizen. economic relationship is an important relationship. But we are not going to discuss it today. And I will not solve them because Paisa also raised issues. And I will show a quote from his latest writings in response to Raghunath Ghosh's article on Samavaya, where he tries to give his own view. And he pleads guilty to the charge that in his book, he talks about so many alternative possibilities, but does not give his own view. He's like, he's like Vachaspati Mishra. You ask, well, is the Bhamati your view, or is the Tatparayatika your view, or is Sanketa Tukamati your view? But Professor Pahi was also like that. But he was going towards something. Achara Manavat. And he was very happy that even before we reached that solution, Babul Moran Nayara Chuto hi jayega. The analogy that you gave, Anubhav just gave. Now, nothing can be more obvious, more uncontroversial than the fact, contact. Okay, here is a pencil, I touch it. My finger is in contact with the pencil. Right? If the dog is in contact with the rug must be in contact with the dog. So contact seems to be a symmetric relation. A is in contact with B entails that B is in contact with A. Contact almost is the only relationship like that. Because Samavaya is not like that, you cannot reverse it. But is contact really symmetric? Troubles start when we use the transitive verb to touch to express this relationship. From the fact that in a crowded bus, some perverted dirty old man touched a schoolgirl, it does not follow that the schoolgirl touched the old man. She was touched by the old man. But in a law court or anywhere, nobody can say she touched her. In an earlier social situation in India, a Dalit person who came into contact, some yoga, with an upper caste Brahmin could be punished. Even though it was the Brahmin who touched her, and she did not touch him back. The moral blame for unwanted contact in every age, in human society, especially in Indian society, girls know. An adolescent girl knows what unwanted contact is a politically as well as metaphysically uncomfortable issue. And I won't discuss it anymore. But Sundar Sarukkai, another philosopher, and Professor Gopal Guru, who is the editor of Political Economic Weekly, Economic Political Weekly, EPW, together wrote in their first book about this point. And the book is called The Cracked Mirror. The common sense realism of Vaiseshika philosophy naturally led to the atomistic hypothesis. All murta, shaped, extended material substances are perceived to be divisible. Okay? So, any substance can be divided. And its part can be divided also. The part of the part can be divided also. But if this process of division does not stop, then both the tallest mountain in the world and the smallest mustard seed would consist of infinite particles of equally infinitesimal size. Then they would be of the same size. But that that is absurd, because we are comparing the tallest mountain and the smallest mustard seed. To avoid this absurd consequence, we must infer. And this is where we are going beyond common sense into logic. And Nyāya-Vaiśeṣikas might be naive, common sense realists. But the first sentence of Professor Matilal's perception book is to be remembered. Naive realism is not that naive. It is empirical realism, always polished with logic. So, it breaks the boundary between empiricism and rationalism. Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika is rationalistic empiricism. So, the process of division must come to an end. Let us not use the word atom for it, because then all modern people who have done physics would object and say such silly things like, oh, they didn't know that atom can be divided into electrons, electrons can be divided into quarks and so on. Because that's not the point. Parmanu is not atom of the modern physics. We should completely give up the translation, atomism. Because that confuses the issue. Just as we should forever stop translating manas as mind, because that creates the confusion. We should always translate it as inner sense. Similarly, I have a translation proposed. Let us use the word as an acronym for the indivisible particle. FIP. So I will, in the rest of the talk, mention them as FIP. 2 FIPs make up a Dhyanu. So FIP means further indivisible particle. Now, so a visible, tangible stone, however small, is a collection of numerous FIPs. All of you understand what a FIP is? FIP is a Parmanu. This is not the kind of Parmanu in which you can have a fission and have a nuclear weapon and feel Mera Bharat Mahan, because we can bombard like Putin. This is not that Parmanu. This is FIP, further indivisible particle. But by definition, a FIP is partless. A FIP does not have any more parts. Niravayava, without avayava. So how can a partless 2 or more or 6 or 7 or 600 FIPs be in contact with other FIPs to form a cluster or heap of FIPs which then becomes visible to our naked eye? Here comes the great Buddhist idealist Vasubandhu's or Vichnoptimatrata Siddhi. In the 30 verses, Vrinshika, he has the notorious objection, which in 9th century, 8th century, Vachaspati Mishra thought he has answered, and I will discuss his answer. But in late 20th century, in fact 21st century, he is now departed, but one of our Calcutta University's greatest Naiyayikas, who was trained by the younger Vamacharan Bhattacharya and by Bhattacharya himself, called Narayana Nyāya-Acharya, Narayana Goswami. He has written a 150-page Bengali article only on Samyoga, in which he says Vachaspati's answer has still problems. But what is the objection? I think 50% of this room knows the objection. Shatkena Yugapat Yoga Paramano Shadam Shata Shandam Samanadeshatva Pindasya अनुमानिक। Here is a Parman, right? It's like a geometrical point. It does not have any breadth, depth or length. It has no parts. It will be connected to another Parman on the east side. On the east side, one Parman will connect with it. On the west side, another Parman will connect to it. On the north and on the south, four others. And on top and in the bottom. So, these 6 atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are connected to the 7th atom in the center. What is the relationship? If I enlarge this, of course to enlarge it is to make it not a Parmanu anymore, because it will have parts. But let us imagine that we are enlarging this picture. So let's take one of these contacts between 2 atoms. Here is where the contact is happening, right? Here is a principle that long before Vasubandhu, the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika Buddha, he already formulated that if 2 substances are in contact, like my hand and this pen, then there must be parts of these substances which are not in contact. If I am under a quilt, winter night, Rasai ke niche, Rasai is totally in contact with my body, but the bottom of my body is not in contact with the Rasai. And the top of the Rasai is not in contact with my body. Nyāyikas loved fun, so they gave the example, monkey sitting on a branch. He said, there is no monkey contact in the root of the tree. And although monkey's bottom is in contact with the branch, but monkey's head is not in contact. So samyoga is avyapya vritti. But then we have to say, this part is in contact with this part, but this part is not. But we cannot say that because there is no part.
Yes.
So, what Vasubandhu's point is simple. Contact is a relation which can only exist between substances which are parts. Niravayavahanam samyog, niravayava padarthayo samyogo na samyogati. Asambhuri. Completely. This is not a curiosity of history of philosophy. Even as soon as late as this year, in July, in June, in Deoprayag, there was a physics researcher of very high caliber, Government of India's Physics Research Center. I asked him, what does physics say? The ultimate particles, one quark and another quark, are they physically in contact with each other? He said there are problems with actual contact. They come very close, but they are not in contact. But Vasubandhu's objection goes further. He says, if you say there is no Digdesha Vibhaga for a partless atom, there is no east-west. Okay? We think this is one thing, but there is just two sides. Okay, left side, right side. Atom is not like that. It has no sides. To have sides is to have parts. So, without contact between physics, the world cannot emerge, external world. Because material world must be put together, but this is the corpuscular theory of matter. There must be particles in this matter. And those particles must be in contact. But particles are partless. Partless things cannot be in contact. So material world is impossible. Therefore, there is no matter. Bahyam vastu nasti. Everything is consciousness. Vijnantimattam eveva. Asadartha. This is, it seems like there is a matter, but there is no matter. Why? Because if you now say, just to hang on to the logical consistency, yes, you are right. One atom and central atom connects with all the other atoms in one place, same place. They have no difference of place. Shannam, some of the six, Shannam, Samana Deshatvad. Yadi Samyogaha, Shat Samyogaha, Ekasminneva Deshe Syat. Then every object will be one atom. And what is the harm in that? If I say every object is one atom. It is also part of the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika worldview that facts cannot be observed. Facts must be imperceptible. That is where the problem lies. Imperceptible, but able to move. Murta padartha. Murta, but not savayava. Does not have parts, but has location. So he says, well, how does samyoga between this primary samyoga, how does that happen? Anything which has distinction of directions, of faces, digbhaga bhedo yasyasti tasya ekatvam na yuchyate iti vijnantimatrata siddho. Vachaspati says, and he says something very deep, and even Udyodhakar who tries to deal with this, but he has not answered. But Vachaspati has answered this objection. He says something which is an extremely 21st century insight, that the distinction between directions is a kalpita distinction. Just look at this. We think objectively my body has a right side and a left side. Right? But if I go like this, it is reversed. Because in your side, that's why children sometimes get confused. If you tell on Zoom, okay, look at my left side. They ask, my left side or your left side? Why? Because it is observer dependent. The word for observer dependent, which is also used in quantum mechanics, word for observer dependent is kalpanika. So, Vachaspati, I will quote in full from Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika, 4th chapter. Ekatve vidisha. Although that is one dravya, like kala. This is very paradoxical. Common sense also says, do we live in different times? No. There is only one time. But it is time which is responsible for the distinction between young and old, now and past and future. Where is that time? And there is separate Nyaya Sutras on this. You cannot say time is all in the past, because past is gone. There is no past. Where is the past? Can anybody see the past? You say remember the past. But in Nyaya, memory is not even a pramana. So past is gone. It's not part of real time. Future has not yet come. It's a totally object of science fiction. What will happen in future? So gone. What happens then? Well, people say nowadays, live in the present. Only present is there, Vartaman. But Nyaya Sutra is there. Although it's a Purvapaksha Sutra. Vartamana bhava patita patita vibhaga Anubhav. So, even present disappears. But the difference between past, present and future is central to time. But there is only one time. What about these three times? Similarly, Vachaspati says, Dik, space is one. But it is space. Ekatve api disha. Although Dik as a padartha, as a dravya is one, Aditya udaya desha pratyasanna desha samyukto. That part of space, which is of any object, which is closer to the direction where the sun rises, with respect to a particular observer. If a child asks, Acha, Daddy, does sun rise in front of you or in back of you? There is no answer. Because if you are facing it, then it's in front of you. If you are away from it, then it's at the back of you. So like front and back. Purva Paschima. And the way he does it is just beautiful. It's like a topology, geometry of space. He says, Aditya Udaya Desha Pratyasam Desha Samyukto Ya Sa Itarasman Viprakrishta Desha Samyoga Paramanam Purva. There is no Purva Paschima Vibhaga in the intrinsic objective atom. But when we are observing, and in thinking about the atom, also there is an observation, mental observation. You have to think of it, one aspect of it. One is facing one way. Now you say, and then he says, how to get north-south from Aditya Udayas. Okay. He says, Tau Purva Paschimo Paramanu Apeksha Ya Suryodaya Astamaya Desha Viprakrishta Samyoga Sa Madhyavarti. Evam Etayoho, of these two, up and down, and Purva and Paschima, east and west, in between, Tiriyam Desha Sambandhino, horizontal, Sambandhino, Madhyasya, Arjavena, Rijuta means straight line. If you draw, so he is dividing it like this. Direction. So, compared to this, if you do a Tiryak Rekha, then these two sides will be north and south. Is there really such a side? No. It is the observer's kalpana. And even Madhyandinavarti, in the midday, right when the sun is up, when it does not cast any shadows. Okay? In the perfect midday, there is no shadow. Right? Madhyandinavarti sannikarshani prakrishna apeksha upari adho. Upari is nearer to the Madhyandina sun, and away from the Madhyandina sun is Adho. And all the six directions are there. Now, answer has been given. But Narayana Acharya says, this shows that the method of Vaiseshika atoms or Vaiseshika fits is totally different from the Buddhist method. Vasubandhu was not arguing against Vaisheshikas. He was arguing against Vaibhashikas, who were Parmana Punjavadis. They were atomistic Vaibhashikas. So, Vachaspati need not have taken his objection seriously. But Vachaspati does. Why? Because there is still that problem. Although Nyaya has avoided that problem by bringing in inherence relation. They say one Paramanu does not connect with 6 other Paramanus. One Paramanu, one fit connects with another fit too. Okay? And as a result, a new thing comes into existence. There is a causal change. This was not there in Vaiśeṣika. And the relationship between the total dyad and the two fits is not of Samyoga, but of Samavaya. So with Samavaya, there was no Samavaya relationship in the Vaibhashikas, only Samyoga. But here becomes causality. At the same time, because the two Paramanus, the two fits, they are the cause, inherent cause of the Avayavi, which is Dhyanuka. And then 3 such Dhyanukas get together to make it Trasarani. Up till Dhyanuka, it is unobservable, imperceptible, nobody can see it. After Trasarani, it becomes visible. Now, there are hundreds of issues that can be raised here. One of them seems to be a killer problem for Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika, which is this. At the beginning of creation, there are no human beings, there are no bodies. The first physical body has not yet happened because Dhyanuka Samyoga has not happened. So, no question of any human being or any living being with a body, embodied being, finding this is East with respect to me and this is West. Now you would say God is the culprit. If the other wrinkle is this, in the production of the dyad, the Dhyanuka, the two Sankhya, Dvitva Sankhya, resident in the two Paramanus, is a Nimitta Karana. The two Paramanus, each of them is a Samavaya Karana. And then there is an Asamavaya Karana, and the Dvitva Sankhya is the Nimitta Karana. Without that Dvitva Sankhya, according to Vaiśeṣika theory, cannot arise unless there is an Apeksha Buddhi, a counting consciousness. And this is where, instead of thinking of a problem, Udayacharya converts this problem into an advantage. And he says, Karyaya ujana dhyade padar pratyaya sindhe sankhya visheshat. And Janardhan and I have been planning for 2 years to write a paper where we make fun. We call God as the counting agent. God counts, I am Eka. As a result, the 2 number arises. And that 2 number makes the Dvandva possible. So what is God? God is the counter. Ganana karta. कौन गिनता है? ईश्वर गिनता है. So जो गिनता, one who does the ganana, in English what can you call it? Counter. Yes, but there is an advantage in calling it the counter, because Janardhan and I want to call our paper Udayana's counter argument for the existence of God, which is not a counter argument, but the argument for the proof of a God. But there is a problem. For God, who is Ashari, everywhere, this is the problem. All the way from the beginning of creation, and Shityam Karadikam Sakaptikam Karyatvar Katava, of which Sashariratva is an Upadhi, because of embodiment, the argument, the causal akasmological argument does not work. So from the beginning of creation, all the way up to Ram Roy, you have the problem of does God have a visible body? Because the Brahmos said he is formless. Not just Brahman. Our Upanishad also says, Apani Padu. He doesn't have hands and feet. In the Jagannath image, it was actually in the heart of the atheistic Paisa. Every day he used to offer flowers to Jagannath. Right? How is he described? What is that? Sarvendriya Gunavasam Sarvendriya Vivarchana. Jagannath does not have eyes. He has some resolvers. He doesn't have full hand. He has an avas of hand. So this is the solution, the iconographical solution of the problem of God's body. Does he have a body like us? No. Does he have no body? Well, if he doesn't have a body, then he cannot be a maker. Because the Vyapti, all the pervasive role we know, every maker we know in the world. Every architect, every maker, every potter. I used to say card to card. That card is naturally you will do Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika because your name is potter. You know, Ghatakrit. And Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika is always thinking about Kumbhakaravat. Jayanta changes the analogy into a Banarasi sari. He says, Suchela ke bhaimatat kushala govindam. So he gives the analogy of the weaver. So God is the weaver, master weaver. But without a body he cannot weave. Without a body he will not have east west. If he does not have east west, then the distinction between which side of the atom, partless atom, is connected to the other atom, that cannot be decided. So this answer of Vachaspati is not without problems. I will leave it there. All of us know that the main problem with Samavaya, I won't go into detail about Samavaya, but we all need some kind of, very quickly, some kind of relationship of whole and part, universal and particular, quality and substance, and so on. Yes. And here is my very quick. What is inherence? Samavaya. The next relationship. It is a kind of being inseparably in. In that English phrase, two words of the Samavaya definition, I put them together. Being in is iya pratyaya hetu and inseparable is ayuta siddha. So putting being inseparably in, the converse of which is an intimate having. Humanity inheres in me, manavatva is in me. Just in case I have humanity. The red color of the apple inheres in the apple because the apple has red color. Now having can be of many kinds. Having. Things have qualities and motions. Wholes have parts. I have a pen in my hand. A rich man has a big house. The logical structure of each of these relations of characterization, constitution, contact, ownership are utterly different. Okay. Now, the taste of a fruit and the walls of a room. The room has walls and the fruit has taste. They cannot exist without the fruit or the room parts. The taste cannot float about on its own minus the apple. The room cannot stand independently on the walls. So the relationship between two entities which cannot stand apart from one another. In fact, it is one-sided. One of them can stand, the walls can exist without the room, but the room cannot exist without the wall. This one-sided inseparability is called samavaya. Okay. Now, however tightly My ring is stuck to my finger. It is not inherent in my finger as inseparably as the skin complexion or the fingerness is inherent in my fingers. There can be a lifelong marriage relationship till death do us part. Even beyond death, two people can be connected, but they are never connected by inherence. That's a different relationship. Okay. The kind of being inseparably in that connects the universal to its instances has to be distinguished from the way a berry, a fruit, lies in a bowl. Kunde Madarava, that is Samjog. For the sake of economy, here comes the problem. Lara Jukti. For the sake of economy, the principle of not multiplying entities beyond necessity, the mainstream Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika metaphysicians posit only one single such relation as enough to link up innumerable pairs of universals and particulars, qualities and substances. Samavaya is eka. Notice, the Vaiseshika philosopher is not saying there is only one type of inherence relation. They are saying there is only one inherence relation. Not one type, one. Literally one. Even other universal friendly realists, such as Prabhakara Mimamsa, give the Vaiseshika a lot of grief over this peculiar theory of exemplification. And the theory is that main relationship issue, I told you, Vaiseshika has relationship issues. The main relationship issue with Samavaya is with its alleged oneness. It is extremely hard to swallow and harder to swallow as part of common sense. Laukika Vyavahara, the claim that every relationship which connects the color of an orange to the orange also connects the body of a tiger with its body parts, like the four legs of the tiger. That is why Prabhakara Mimamsakas remedy this difficulty by admitting a plurality of samvayas. And here there is a metaphilosophical question whether it is accurate on our part to say both Prabhakaras and the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣikas admit samavaya, but Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika samavaya is one and Prabhakara samavaya is many. It may not be appropriate to say that, because it changes, the padartha is not the same. And Professor Biswambhar Pahi writes in his response to Raghunath Ghosh, Professor Ghosh is right. I am reading from Professor Pai's response. In my exposition of Samavaya, I have failed to highlight clearly my own position. My own position is the same as that of Prabhakara's followers and of Raghunath Shiromani. Thus, I find it necessary to admit a plurality of Samavayas. And Samavayatva as an Akhandopadi like Abhavatva, Nitya Samavaya is found only in mathematical structures such as permutate groups and their underlying sets. Otherwise, Samavaya is neither Nitya nor Eka. Why is that? And a Vaiseshika will shudder. If it is neither Nitya nor Eka, it is not Samavaya. You may have something else. But many Samavayas may not the same thing. So this is the relationship issue of Samavaya, which is the linchpin, the heart of the Sambandhis called Nyāyikas. Last, I will take only 5 to 10 more minutes, and then I'll finish. Sorry for going on for such a long time. But why do we need something called counting completion, paryapti? Most beautifully said by a junior colleague of mine who still teaches in Jadavpur University, called Gangadhar Nyāyacharya. So I will just slowly read the Sanskrit, and when necessary I will explain. The problem is very simple. When you have 5 fingers, it is by a man called Ashoka Pandit. And he says, apart from these particular fingers, there is nothing called Panchatattva. That is totally rubbish. We don't see anything else. And his karika is beautiful. I suddenly remember now. Etasu panchasvavasinishu shashtam samanyam abhyupagamyate jai. Let them also admit 2 extra horns on their head. Shringam shirasya aviyata. He is laughing at the Nyāya. Then you say you will do yatha anubhava as we perceive. Why are you saying there is a 6th pin called the number 6 or angulitva jati? You don't need to. But naive realism is not that naive. Although against the Buddhist, Jain and Udayana both says things like aho vyakhyana kaushalam anubhavam abhi vyakhyaya kathayati. But they themselves do reinterpretations of our experience. The process of numerical quality, sankhya, emerging out of counting awareness, apeksha buddhi, it should be easy to any of you who have studied even Tarka Sangraha and definitely Muktavali. But I'll say very fast, please don't blame me if it's not all clear. Any perception of number 2, number 3 requires at least 7 moments. So I'll go like this, the Pandits do. Moment 1, moment 2, moment 3, moment 4, moment 5, moment 6, moment 7. It's only in the 7th moment that you can perceive number 2. How? Suppose there is a rose, a gulab, and a genda, marigold, 2 flowers. In moment 1, you have nirvikalpaka, not nirvikalpaka yet, not perception. In moment 1, there is only existence of ekatva sankhya in marigold and ekatva sankhya, oneness in marigold, oneness in rose. That's all. This ekatva sankhya does not require any counting. It is objectively there. Ekatva is not apeksha buddhi. It is already there. So this is a sankhya quality. Just one reminder. The oneness in this genda, this marigold, is not the oneness in the rose. These are 2 distinct ekatvas. In the second moment, you perceive, and nirvikalpaka happens. Nirvikalpaka, non-conceptual, direct, general perception of a particular rose, the particular marigold, the oneness quality in one of them, oneness number 1 and oneness number 2. These are seen not as sankhya, but they are sankhya, but they are perceived in a non-conceptual way. Moment number 2. So moment number 1, ekatva sankhya exists in both of them. 2 ekatva sankhya. Moment number 2, nirvikalpaka perception of ekatva sankhya of both. Moment number 3, savikalpaka awareness, ayam eka, ayam eka. 2ness has not yet happened. This is one, this is another. Moment number 4, 2ness emerges with 3 causal conditions. 2ness is not yet perceived, it emerges. One is that the samavai karan of 2ness is this marigold and that marigold, this rose. So there is the existence of the causal conditions of two-ness arising. And then nirvikalpa awareness of the Dvitva Samjhana happens. As a result, in moment 5, as a result, in moment 6, savikalpa perception of Dvitvam, Dvitvatva Vishishta Dvitva, that is perceived in the 6th moment. In the 7th moment, you come back to the flowers and you say, Imodho. These are 2 flowers. That's what the 7th moment. Now, where is the two-ness? The two-ness is, if you say the two-ness is in the marigold, that will be wrong. Because then it will be 2 marigolds. The actual marigold has oneness. Then you become smart. You have a set theory from Paisa. You say it is the set of those 2 things. Set of 36 things, that is 36ness. No. The set is one. Pushpadvayasya kusumadvayasya ya rashi ya samashti samuma tatu eka. There is only one set of flowers. Even if it has 36 members, 2 members. The set is one. Each member is one. Where is the 2? 2 is in counting completion relationship distributively in each of them. Because with respect to the first flower, the second is 2. With respect to the second flower, the first is 2. So, this is sapeksha. This is called apeksha buddhi. And by that apeksha buddhi, the number arises. The 2, 3, 4, 5, these numbers arise. Arise where? In each of the members. Distributively. As well as in the whole group. But not the group as one group. But as a group of 6, group of 5 groups. This is not so easy to understand. We have come far away from common sense. In order to make sense of common sense. If you say, I have 5 friends. Is each of your friends 5? Then you will have 25 friends. No, each of the friends is not 5. Oh, I have a group. I have one group of 5 friends. Is the group 5? No, group is 1. In order to solve this problem, this relationship problem, they propose the new relationship other than inherence, other than contact, called Paryapti, counting completion. But that does not solve all problems. Relationships problems still remain. If you have to really live and understand the relationship, you will also have to deal with the problems. There is no problem-free relationship.
Understood that even in the text, last chapters are unusually difficult. We are thankful to Professor Chakrabarti for having present before us a beautiful and brilliant analysis of a very abstruse issue of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika systems and Indian philosophy in general. I am sure we'll take 1 question from those who are physically present here and 1 from those who are connected with us virtually and so on.
Please. Yes. Yes.
I feel really privileged and grateful to be listening to your words of wisdom. There is one confusion in my mind that since we are living the latest computer technology world and we have the virtual space in our pocket all 24 hours. And the smartphone or the computer it is the virtual world. And it's the world of virtual reality. So the whole world is analog with the world of virtual reality. And in such a situation, when there is a metaverse technology which can create avatars, and these avatars, without their physical entity, they have the contact and relationship. In the latest past, I think 3-4 months back, a lady reported to the court that I was on the metaverse technology and I created the avatar, and the avatar sexually misbehaved with me.
Yes. Yes.
It was a virtual reality.
Yes.
So this contact relationship.
She was suing herself.
Yeah. But anyway, this I want to submit before your lordship that since this metaverse technology, without the real existence, the sense organs they perceive as if real, or the other context, or the pretext, they feel as it is pretext. So in such a situation, will it not affect the relationship of the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika? And how do we explain, how will it impact it?
Thank you. Thank you. And with artificial, these two cannot be taken lightly. Some changes will have to be made in our metaphysics. But I would humbly say that just as mathematics, in spite of so many different logical systems, people are now having logics where P and not P can be true together. Contradictions. This is called dialectic logic. We should not rush and say, oh, this is what Nagarjuna was talking about. Not necessarily. In a sense, people sometimes dance and say, virtual reality shows that all reality is in our mind. That would be a mistake. Because what is rendered possible by a machine, by even a software. Now, what kind of entity a software is? It may not be a physical entity, but that doesn't mean it is of consciousness. So there may be third kind of entity. Okay? Like already in philosophers who are the father of modern logic is called Frege. Frege said that a physical object, a land, a grassy land, a lawn, that's a physical object. My image, mental image, my emotions, my anger, that's a mental object. But that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Is not in my mind and it is not in the material world also. He called it a third kind of entity. And I think he was right. So virtual world may be another kind of entity. But there are some people now who are in too much hurry. And Professor Pahi taught us one thing. And in this he was like Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein wrote in his diary that if one philosopher, एक दार्शनिक दूसरा दार्शनिक को सुबह उठ के क्या कहेंगे? Greeting. Everybody else will say good morning, how are you? He wrote, no, philosophers should have a special greeting. And you know what he wrote? He said, one philosopher sees another philosopher. Wittgenstein wrote, he should say, take your time. Nahi paramanena labhya. That is why there is a contradiction in making agendas and, I have talks and I am following him. My talks are always unfinished because there is time limits. You can't give time limits to philosophy. Now, virtual reality Many people are now saying that shows Buddhist way, right? Yogacharya is good. Everything is our comfort. Not correct. Virtual reality does not prove that there is no external world. The external world is still there. It need not be material.
The technocrats have gone further, Professor. They have gone to the augmented reality and mixed reality.
Opposite. There is more reality outside. But the question is it outside our mind or is it not? Both Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika and Dvaita Vedanta, they will say it is outside us. Vishwam Satyam. Vishwa is not Mithya. And virtual reality proves they don't add support to saying Jagat is Maya. That's not true. So let us not rush. Okay? There is no tendency, except in lazy, quick thinkers, to say that computer science and cyber reality, metaverse, has proved that Advaita Vedanta was right, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. That would be total travesty of any kind of understanding.
We have a galaxy of eminent scholars present with us virtually. Professor J.L. Shaw, New Zealand, Professor Dilip Kumar Mohanta, Calcutta University, Professor Pradeep Gokhale, Pune University, Professor C.D. Sebastian, IIT Bombay, Professor Priyadarshini Jetli, Professor Daniel Ravi, Professor Ganesh Das, Professor Godavarish Mishra, Professor Latif Fazmi, Professor Shivani Sharma, Professor Rekha Nami, and Dr. Monika Prabhakar. Professor J.L. Shaw wants to ask some questions.
My special greetings and namaskar to Priyadarshi. Priyadarshi, very nice to see you after such a long time. Professor Shaw. Professor Shaw. Jai Shankar, namaskar.
भैया भैया मंगल जी थोड़ा सा
Professor Shaw, can you unmute?
Not have some relation. Sanyoga relation. But we must make distinction between Niravaya and Niranshi. Paramanu may not have avaya, but it has amsha because dik sambandha, because it is anupadat, it has dik sambandha. So when because dik is omnipresent, so you cannot reject that Paramanu does not have dik sambandha. If you accept dik sambandha, you must accept the sambandha of opposite dik. Yes, naturally you should accept something which brings it in contact with two different things. That means it has amshas. You should have two different, because later part of Nyāyikas, when we see the history, they could not establish that definitely Paramanu does not have avayavas, but it has amshas. Therefore it cannot.
We can invent new Sanskrit words. I don't know how to handle this. Should I answer? You can answer. See, part, you cannot say part. You can say aspects, but not parts. However, Amsha for means part. But direction is very important. The real problem is that the concept of Murtattva is most important. It is Murtattva is not necessarily survival. Right? Now, what does that mean? Why do we have to say that a partless fig, further indivisible particle, a partless fig has to be moved? How do you translate moved? I have translated sometimes as you cannot say perceptible, because not all mukta is perceptible. So I said shaped with a form. But normally, if you say shape, akriti, that is avayava sannivesh. So you cannot say shape. So if you keep on saying murta, then it's just a word. So what is murta? There is a good answer by Rajeev. That anything which can move must have, because it can move this way or that way.
So directional.
But Vachaspati, being such a realist and totally opposed to this subjectivism, admits that this distinction between amshas and amayavas, what are amshas? Kalpanika. Dik sambandha. But this dik sambandha, if you look at it from the point of view, as he has explained, nearer to the sunrise place, and because east-west is that is the because it is the observer. Who is observing? And that is the point that Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika makes. He also makes the point that if you believe in this directionality, then at the moment of its arising, every object is in touch with samyoga, with infinite number of objects. As a result, akasha is defined sarva bhuta dravya samyoga. That means omnipresent. That is okay because there is only akara, one akasha. But when you say in Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika, in pursuing this, that this thing called vibhu belongs also to Atmas, then Advaitis, Chitsukacharya, they all say, how do you distinguish between two Atmas? They are both Sarva Mukta Dravya Samyogi. So then there is a whole new relationship problem. Now it is not the problem, old problem. How can Niramsha, Niravaya Padartha get into touch? You have solved that problem. But you have now created a problem of how is Vibhutvaya Samyoga possible. And you can distinguish between two Atmas. You cannot, in the West you will never do that. Because the consciousness is not Vibhu or Madhyama Pariman. It does not have any Pariman at all. There was a reason why, in spite of admitting that it is not physical, like Descartes, the Nyaya Atma is supposed to have a dimension. Why? And this is what Pahi has dug deeper, and he has shown us. But that doesn't mean that he has solved all the relationship problems and have defended as a coherent system all of Vaiseshika. If he did that, then he would not have opposed oneness of Samvaya. So sometimes, if you have to develop that science, if you have to develop that Vaiseshika, you don't have to be as radical as Raghunatha. But you will have to take something from Prabhakar, the Bahutva, the manyness, and then repair this relationship issue. To continue my analogy, you cannot be monogamous to Vaiseshika.
Yes. That we understand.
Professor J.L. Shaw would like to ask some questions. Professor J.L. Shaw.
But Jetli was asking something. We have to give him a chance. After.
Oh, I already am.
Yeah, later, after Joy Shankar, after Dr. Shaw, because I did not hear your objection. I will hear
Okay.
later.
Let Dr. Shaw ask the question.
Yes, after that.
Before me.
And after that.
We will communicate to each other.
Yes, and after that. Okay. Yes, please, Dr. Shaw. জয়শঙ্করদা বলুন। unmute. We can't hear you. Technological issues. I think.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, while Dr. Shah is trying to reach you, I can ask my question. I am Ravi Sharma. I am an ontologist, so-called, but more a physicist. I am requesting you to tell me a little bit about what you just mentioned about counting. Good Vedic Ganit, as being taught by Professor Kapoor, among others, would it help you solve the logic problem of counting if we followed Vedic Ganit?
My answer is very clear, categorical, and definite. Thank you for asking the question. The answer is no.
Okay, what about first order logic?
No, we are just dealing with first order logic. No, the counting issue is, there is a paper you can read about this, very simple. It is published in a book I edited from Shilla Institute of Advanced Studies. It is called Meaning and Metaphysics and Morality after Matilal. And in that, Jonathan Ganeri has a paper on the concept of number in Frege and Nyāya. And he shows how there are remaining issues in the Indian theories of number. And there is not only one theory, but there are lots of mathematical problems which can be solved by going to Vedic mathematics or in Aryabhata, all that. But not this metaphysical problem, which is very simple. The hardest problems of philosophy are the simplest ones, which is that when you have 5 friends or 5 fingers, is the number 5 a property of each of the fingers, or is it a property of the set? And one thing is right about Vaiseshikas. It is not a property, simply property of either each of the fingers or of the set of fingers. It is by that counting completion. Here we are not only talking about counting, but Sakalya Vachan, like Sakalam, all of them have been become. I skipped the part of reading what Paryapti is, but with Paryapti, many of the problems are solved. But my point is not all. And don't expect that by going to Vedic Ganit or something, you can solve those problems. Because it is not a Ganit problem. It is an ontology problem, not a mathematics problem.
But the ontology begins with the relationship among at least 2 objects. And if it is self-referral, at least one object to itself.
Now I cannot answer your question because these are not questions. Can I have Priyadarshi Jati's question, please? If you make a statement, there is no answer to that.
We would like to call Professor Jain. Professor Jain, can you please unmute yourself and ask question?
Thank you.
Gently. Priyadarshi, we are waiting for you. There seems some lag. But what happened to Joy Shukrman? He has raised a hand. I think he should have
Professor Jain,
Gently, you write to me, you email me. Please email me. No, yes.
We have last question of the day. Chinmay would like to ask some question.
I'm quite grateful to be in your presence,
Ah.
So, same time when things are fading at the same time, why not have multiple samvais? So it's and anitya samvai as well. So thank you very much for that. But now coming to Vishayata. So when we talk about Vishayata in Nyaya, we need to have the avachhedak. first to be known, and then why don't we have an infinite regression on that? And along with it, when we deny an object, I was going through your book, Realism Interlinked, and I was thinking when we talk about different philosophers in India, I mean, denying an object does not really necessarily deny the subject and the vice versa. Because when we deny the object, I mean, I can still have a unicorn in my mind which does not really exist. And when we talk about Kant, we can still have numinals which are there, but it doesn't become the subject. So I have this regarding the Vishayata. And the second thing I want to ask you is regarding the fips which you mentioned. I mean, when we have two fips coming in contact, we have this casual, there's a casual change which you mentioned.
Causal change.
A causal change that you mentioned. But if you look at the modern physics, I mean, in quantum physics, as you mentioned, the two quarks don't have a contact. At the same time, what we also observe is the two atoms. They don't even really touch the electron outer surface at the same time. So there comes the question then regarding Satkaryavad, that when Sankhya has this idea that if there's mud, you can only make a pot out of it and not really jewelry. So then the
Sarvasambhava bhava.
Yes. So somehow we need to also probably intertwine the Satkaryavad as well as the Asatkaryavad to solve this issue. So isn't this an issue?
It's a very good question, but it's not one question.
Yes.
It has many questions in it. Okay? So I gleaned two of them. If we deny, you see, I did not deal with Vishayata Sambandha. My teacher, Professor Shivajivan Bhattacharya, has explained Gadadhara's text, Vishayatavada, in 2 volumes. Okay? But roughly, the relationship between a cognition and its object is thought of in 3 possible ways. One is, it cannot be Samvaya Sambandha, because the object is not inherent in the cognition. And none of them is actually Ayuta Siddha. But so it has to be Swarupa Sambandha. Just one note here. Whenever you have no other relation and you still see relatedness, then the Nyāyika say it is a Swarupa Sambandha. Right? But in the case of Vishayata, the object and the cognition, the question arises, Swarupa of which it is reduced to the Vishayata relation, either Jnana Swarupa or Vishaya Swarupa. And Gadadhara proposes a third option, that it is neither Jnana Swarupa nor Vishaya Swarupa, but a Tritiya Padartha. And you are very much right that if you admit a third Padartha, then the whole point of having Swarupa Sambandha, which are self-connecting, that goes. And then you have an Anavastha Prasanga. And that was actually the reason why Samavayas were not thought to be. You started by saying, like Vaisa, like Raghunatha, like Prabhakaras, I like many Samavayas. But imagine, if you have many Samavayas, will there be anything common among those Samavayas? Well, you will have to say, yes, there is a Samavayatva. It cannot be a Jati. Because Anavastite, that is the Jati Padaka. Anavastiti. Okay? Vyaptera Veda is not the problem. No. Because we are talking about Bahu Samavayas.
If we are talking.
Yeah, that is what I am asking.
But I can have some Samvaya as well as Vishesh in that Samvaya.
Visheshas are many, no problem. But Samavayas are many, suppose. Then, Vyaptera Veda is not the Jati Padaka. Tulyatvam is not the Jati Padaka. Sankara is not the Jati Padaka. But Anavastiti is the Jati Padaka. Because if you say Samavayatva as a common, what is the relationship between Samavayatva, the Akhandopati, and each of the Samavayas? You will have to say Swarupa. And if you say Swarupa there, then Vyasatitva will say, why not between the color and this substance Swarupa? Then it becomes like Kumarini. It is a Veda Sambandha. And wherever you have Veda Sambandhas, you are totally bivalent logicians. If something is distinct from another thing, it cannot also be non-distinct. Identity and Veda cannot exist together.
Why not?
That is Nyāyika's bias. Because paraspara virodhetu na prakarantara sthiti. But Veda is just like that. And there, the Vyasatirtha will say, you are not following your own Anubhav. Because when I see color orange and the orange, I cannot say they are totally separate. I cannot say they are identical. You have to admit Veda. And that is what we call Swarupa. You will also have to admit such Swarupa in the case of Vishayata. The content and the cognition are both distinct but non-distinct. So if you admit it there, why don't you admit it here? And Nyaya would still say, for Laghava, we can manage all our business with one samvaya. Why should we have more? So the problems of relationship will keep going. But your questions were very good.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, we cannot have any more questions. Those who would like to ask more questions can mail Professor Chakrabarti.
Yes.
Okay. I will now urge our chief guest, Professor Shrinivasa Varakhedi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Sanskrit University, who is also a gifted scholar of Nyaya, Navya Nyaya, Madhva Vedanta, and Vyakaran traditions, to address us.
Sarvebhyah pranamah. I am obliged to the Department of Philosophy, Rajasthan University, for giving this very unique opportunity for me to be part of this program. I recall the days when I visited Rajasthan University on the invitation of Professor Pahi long back, it's 20 years. And first time I met him, I had an opportunity to discuss with him till late night, 8, 9. I think seminar used to be closed by 5 because the person has to lock the door. But Pahi used to continue his seminar outside the seminar hall. And many a times we used to stand for hours. That was the style of conducting seminar by Professor Pahi. Even he used to forget having lunch during lunch time. I saw in Matilal's seminar in Calcutta, he forgot to take his lunch and he was continuing with his discussions with many. And really, it's very adarsh philosophers we had, and of course many of his projects are unfinished, as said by my friend Varshney. But it is quite the nature of the philosophy. Philosophy is unfinished. If you finish it, it does not remain a philosophy. And it is philosophy, therefore it is unfinished. As it is today's Professor Arindam Chakrabarti's lecture is unfinished. Because he needs to come back and continue his philosophy again. Very nice to listen to Professor, because I am in continuation of this lecture. Before this lecture, some lectures have happened. Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, I was the audience for him. And of course, today after this project, after this lecture, again we are continuing journey, and his lecture will continue with me. One thing I wanted to offer to the lotus feet of Professor Pahi, because I consider Professor Pahi is my guru, like Dronacharya. He never taught me directly in the classroom, but I learned a lot from him through his lectures, through his books, through his articles. I still remember his one concept called what is the speciality of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika? That is concept neutral content. Something like that. Prameya Vishesha Apakshapati Prameya Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika Pratipadikata Sarva Shastropakarakatvam. This is very briefly he narrated the beauty of uniqueness of Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika system. I want to offer a small, very small but very subtle concept of Swarupa Sambandha. I think you can continue. At the end, Professor Chakrabarti ended his lecture with something, one statement on Swarupa Sambandha, because Swarupa Sambandha is acceptable to Nyayikas but not acceptable to some people. Again, the problem remains. Because all problems are problematic. But now I want to show you how beautifully Swarupa Sambandha is described. If the name itself has some contradiction. How? Swarupa, Swam. Swam means self. The very discrete object which disassociate from others.
Unrelated.
Okay? This is Swam. And then Sambandha is relation. And how do you say that Swarupa can be Sambandha? It's totally very much contradicted. Vadato Vyadhata. Swarupa Sambandha itself is Vadato Vyadhata. How to understand this? Because the Swarupa and Sambandha both are opposed to each other. You cannot bring them together. So I thought many years, what is this? Whether just it's a reduction of other Sambandhas into one place, as you said, ultimately I don't have separate existence for that, therefore I reduce it. I am a reductionist. So Nyayikas are reductionists. They want Laghava. Therefore ultimately somewhere you have to keep them. That safer box is so. Okay, keep them in so box, then forget rest of the things. But it is not so. So it is logically thought of idea. Why? I tell you. When you add, when you say Swar means unconnected. When you add Twa to it, Twa, Bhava, that means Dharma.
And that's what Rupa is.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm coming to that point. When Swatvam, then immediately you will have two, one thing, Swam and Twa. Twa means Dharma. That's what Swarupa says. Rupa means Rupam Dharma. That means Swam and Rupam Dharma. This language connection brings inevitability of introduction of Swarupa. How? I call it self-entailment relation. Self-entailment. What is entailment? It is logical necessity. You cannot say that there is Swam and Twa, then you don't have relation. Because as soon as you spell, as soon as you state that there is Swatvam or Swarupam, then you have a relation within that. So this relation within, what is that? That is Swarupa involves Sambandha, that is Dharma Dharmi Bhava. This, you cannot avoid this Dharma Dharmi Bhava. This Dharma Dharmi Bhava is a relation without any action, Kriya. Normally relations happen with Kriya. Without action, I cannot say that some relation will happen. In our all worldly life, all relations are initiated through some action. But here is a Sambandha which does not require any action, but it is just a self-entailment with Swa and Twa. So therefore, Sattva has to be explained. So now, coming to this Sattva, Dharma Dharmi Bhava, this self-entailment relation is a language-driven relation. because Naiyayikas would always believe that you cannot separate language because it is padartha. When you bring pada, then automatically you have to have an artha with it. So with this, I think with this idea of Swarupa Sambandha Vishesha, I end my note. Thank you so much.
With your presence, we have amidst us family of Professor Biswambhar Pahi. I would like to invite Professor Pahi's wife and daughter. Please come on the stage. Sudakshina ma'am.
आगे अरविंद आप देखिए
गुरुजी गुरुजी सर सर
नमः सभाभ्यः सभापतिभ्यश्च नमो नमः. Respected Professor Arindam Chakrabarti ji, my dear friend Professor Shrinivasa Varakhedi ji, Professor Arvind Vikram Singh ji, Anubhav Varshney ji, and other scholars from country and abroad. This is indeed a matter of pleasure to listen to Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, because his depth of knowledge and the wide range of knowledge both are very rare. His acquaintance, deep understanding of Western philosophical concepts and Indian philosophical concepts are unparalleled. On the concept of some relations, Sanyoga, Samvaya, Paryapti, he presented a very beautiful presentation. However, there was a time limit and he could not commit, who could not present all the thoughts he wanted to present. Professor Pahi was an original thinker. His work, वैशेषिक पदार्थ व्यवस्था का पद्धति मूलक विमर्श, this is indeed a great work, because this lecture is organized in the memory of Professor Pahi, and this beautiful book is written in Hindi. I would like to present some thoughts of mine in Hindi. I think you will not mind. देखिए, प्रोफेसर पाही ने यह ग्रंथ जो हिंदी में लिखा, उसके पीछे भी उनका एक बड़ा उद्देश्य था. उद्देश्य इसलिए था क्योंकि वो अंग्रेजी भी बहुत अच्छी जानते थे, लेकिन बहुत अच्छी अंग्रेजी जानने के बाद भी उन्होंने हिंदी में इस ग्रंथ को लिखा. हो सकता है कि अगर उन्होंने अंग्रेजी में लिखा होता तो किसी बड़े पब्लिशर से, ज़्यादा बड़े पब्लिशर से छपता और वर्ल्ड फेमस ग्रंथ होता हो, परंतु उन्होंने हिंदी में इस ग्रंथ को लिखा यह सोच करके कि हिंदी भाषा में भी जो शोध कर रहे हैं उन लोगों को भी एक मानक मिले और उनको भी एक आदर्श प्रतीत हो कि किस प्रकार से उनको लिखना चाहिए, किस प्रकार से नया चिंतन करना चाहिए दार्शनिक दिशा में. इसलिए उनकी जो भावना थी वो भावना बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण थी. उस भावना का सम्मान करते हुए हम सभी को भी यह प्रयास तो अवश्य करना चाहिए कि हम अपनी, जैसा कि प्रोफेसर अरिंदम चक्रवर्ती जी ने भी कहा कि पहले तो इसका अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में इसका अनुवाद किया जाना चाहिए और उसके बाद इसका अंग्रेजी में अनुवाद किया जाना चाहिए. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा, बहुत अच्छा सुझाव है. यह निश्चित ही किया जाना चाहिए और हम सोचेंगे इसके बारे में हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हर एक व्यक्ति की अपनी अपनी कुछ सीमाएं हैं और उन सीमाओं में रह करके ही कार्य करना पड़ता है. लेकिन यह प्रस्ताव बहुत अच्छा है
और यह कार्य किया जाए। और ये करने का जो उद्देश्य है कि भारतीय भाषाओं में दार्शनिक चिंतन को बढ़ावा दिया जाए कि किस प्रकार से उस चिंतन को हम कर सकते हैं। प्रोफेसर अरिंदम चक्रवर्ती ने कई सारे विषयों के बारे में लिखा और एक तरह से कहना चाहिए कि मुझे जो बात समझ में आती है कि अगर कोई व्यक्ति आइडियलिस्ट है तो वो संबंध को कभी भी स्वीकार नहीं कर सकता है, और अगर रियलिस्ट है तो उसको संबंध को किसी न किसी रूप में स्वीकार करना अनिवार्य होगा। क्योंकि अगर संबंध को नहीं स्वीकार करते हैं तो वस्तुवाद का जो धरातल है, जिनकी जो भूमिका है, उसकी जो नींव है, वह नींव ही धराशायी हो जाती है। यह अनायास नहीं है कि प्रमाणवार्तिक में धर्म कीर्ति सीधे सीधे कहते हैं संबंधो नास्ति तत्वतः। संबंध जो है तत्वतः है ही नहीं, और संबंध तत्वतः नहीं है, इसीलिए संबंध विषय जो भी ज्ञान है वो सब मिथ्या है। क्योंकि जो भी सविकल्पक ज्ञान होगा वो संबंध विषयक होगा। जात्यादि कल्पना की बात जो कही जाती, नाम जात्यादि कल्पना और नाम जात्यादि योजना शब्द का भी प्रयोग किया जाता है। तो यह जो योजना करना है, जाति की योजना, योजना का मतलब संबंधी हुआ, और संयोग में हम उसी युज धातु का प्रयोग देखते हैं। तो योजना है, तो अगर नाम जात्यादि की योजना हो गई तो फिर वो संबंध वहां पर आ गया। जी,
आपका धर्मकीर्ति का इतना सुंदर कविता है।
हाँ,
इति अमिश्रः स्वयं भाव तान योजयति कल्प।
या इति अमिश्रः स्वयं भाव। हाँ,
आप तो मिश्र है
जी।
वस्तु सब अमिश्र है
जी। तो जो अमिश्र है उसको कल्पना जोड़ दिया करती है। प्रोफेसर जैन मोहांती ने एक जगह पर एक पेपर में आकार और प्रकार के बारे में चर्चा करी है। कहा कि बौद्ध दर्शन में आकार आता है और न्याय दर्शन में उसका विपरीत आता है प्रकार। क्योंकि जो आकार की अवधारणा है वो वस्तुवाद के साथ नहीं फिट बैठती। आकार की अवधारणा तो जो विज्ञानवाद है उसके साथ फिट बैठती है। प्रकार की जो अवधारणा है वस्तुवाद के साथ फिट बैठती है। तो न्याय की जो अवधारणा है वो प्रकारवाद की अवधारणा है। प्रकार क्या है? विशेषण है, और विशेषण को लेंगे तो उसको विशेषण के साथ, विशेषण को जब विशेष्य के साथ जोड़ेंगे तो संबंध को आना जरूरी है। इसीलिए जितना भी सविकल्पक ज्ञान होता है वो सारा का सारा सविकल्पक ज्ञान प्रकार सप्रकारक होता है, ससंसर्गक होता है और सविशेष्य होता है। और मजेदार बात ये भी है कि नैयायिकों के यहाँ, नव्य नैयायिकों के यहाँ विशेष करके इसको स्पष्ट किया गया कि जो निर्विकल्पक ज्ञान है वो प्रमा नहीं है, जो प्रमा है वो सविकल्पक ज्ञान ही प्रमा
भी नहीं है, भ्रम भी नहीं,
भ्रम भी नहीं है। न प्रमा न भ्रमा, ब्रह्मस्यात् निर्विकल्पकम्, गंगेशोपाध्याय का बहुत प्रसिद्ध उद्धरण है। तो अब ये जो भ्रम है, भ्रम भी नहीं है और प्रमा भी नहीं है निर्विकल्पक, लेकिन जो सविकल्पक है वही परमात्मा है। इसके विपरीत अगर हम देखें तो बौद्धों के यहाँ निर्विकल्पक ही प्रमा है, सविकल्पक उनके यहाँ प्रमा नहीं है। तो एक तरह से संबंध विषयक जो विचार है उस विचार को इन दोनों खेमों के बीच में जो संघर्ष है उस संघर्ष के परिप्रेक्ष्य में देखा जाना चाहिए। और ये बड़ी प्रसन्नता की बात है कि प्रोफेसर चक्रवर्ती ने इसको उस संदर्भ के साथ बहुत अच्छे तरीके से जोड़ करके देखा। क्योंकि आपने जो उल्लेख किया वसुबंधु का कि जो जिसमें कि षट्के युगपद योगा परमाणु निरंशता षडंश परमाणु षडंशता कहते हुए और वो षडंश हो गया, तो ऐसी स्थिति में फिर मुश्किल है कि वो परमाणु तो रहा ही नहीं, क्योंकि वो तो उसके तो अंश हो गए और अंश हो गए तो षड भाग हो गया। और ये युक्ति तो हम लोग देखते हैं कि आचार्य शंकर ने भी शंकर भाष्य में उठाई है। तो संयोग, समवाय और पर्याप्त, वस्तुतः ये जो संबंध का इतना पूरा विवेचन न्याय परंपरा में इतने विस्तृत तरीके से और व्यवस्थित तरीके से सांगोपांग हुआ, एक तरह से कहना चाहिए। संबंध के विषय में इतना ज्यादा जो चिंतन हुआ वो इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि भाई जो सविकल्पक है उस सविकल्पक का भी एक वस्तु है आगे। मतलब सविकल्पक के लिए आवश्यक चीज क्या है कि सविकल्पक में जो भी उपलब्ध हो रहा है वो बाह्य जगत में हमारे लिए उपलब्ध है। अगर नहीं होगा तो तद्वति तत्प्रकार को अनुभव यथार्थ जो कहा गया वो यथार्थ के अनुभव की परिभाषा ही गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, गलत हो जाएगी। तो तद्वति तत्प्रकार को अनुभव यथार्थ को लेने के लिए तद्वति तत्प्रकार तद्वान होना चाहिए बाह्य जगत में। यानी कि बाह्य जगत में तद्वान है तो तत्प्रकारक यहाँ पर अनुभव हो रहा है, और तद्वान होने के लिए संबंध को लाना जरूरी होगा, क्योंकि संबंध के बिना तद्वान की बात नहीं की जा सकती है। अब ये जितना भी तद्वान का अनुभव है, वो अनुभव किस प्रकार से होता है, उसके लिए अलग अलग संबंध आए, संयोग आ गया, समवाय आ गया, फिर पर्याप्ति भी आ गया। पर्याप्ति इसलिए आ गया क्योंकि संयोग से समवाय से काम नहीं चला, क्योंकि प्रतीतियां हमको दो प्रकार की होती हैं, घटः परंतु घटो न दो, घटः परंतु घटो न दो, घटो दो, इस प्रकार से प्रतीति होती है। दो घटों को लेकर के दो ये प्रतीति तो होगी, परंतु घटः है, ये भी प्रतीति है, घटः ये भी अबाधित प्रतीति है। तो इस प्रतीति का निर्वाह पर्याप्ति के द्वारा नहीं हो सकता, तो समवाय चाहिए। और घटो नटो, ये प्रतीति का निर्वाह कैसे होगा, क्योंकि जैन धर्मेण यत्र येन संबंधेन यद्वक्ता प्रतीयते न योगस्थले तत्संबंधावच्छिन्न प्रतियोगिता का अभाव प्रतीयते। ये तो गदाधर भट्टाचार्य की पंक्ति है कि जहां पर जिस संबंध से यद्वक्ता प्रतीत होती है नय का निवेश करेंगे तो तद धर्म तत्संबंधावच्छिन्न प्रतियोगिता का अभाव प्रतीत होगा। तो अब आप कहते हो कि घटः अद्वित्ववान, तो घटो न दो कहेंगे तो वहां पर समवाय संबंधावच्छिन्न प्रतियोगिता का भाव प्रतीत होना चाहिए, वो संभव नहीं है, वो तो बाधित हो जाएगा। तो अब ऐसी स्थिति में कि जो हमारा अनुभव है, हमारे व्यवहार में जो आ रहा है, उसको किस प्रकार से जस्टिफाई करें, किस तरीके से उसको डेवलप किया जाए, तो नैयायिकों ने निकाला कि नहीं, यहाँ पर ये जो प्रतीति है वो भले ही उसके लिए जो कि अभी चक्रवर्ती जी ने बताया कि अनुभव की व्याख्या कथ्यते, अनुभव की व्याख्या करना करके कहते हैं, जहां तक हो सके अनुभव की व्याख्या न करनी पड़े अच्छा है, लेकिन ये संभव नहीं है समग्र तो सर्वभावेन कि हर जगह पर अनुभव की व्याख्या न करनी पड़े, क्योंकि जो कि जब हम यथोपलब्धि व्यवस्था न्याय की बात करते हैं, मैंने अभी अरविंद विक्रम सिंह जी ने अनुभव वार्ष्णेय ने हमको उद्धृत करते हुए कहा था कि मैंने उनको प्रच्छन्न चारवाक करके संबोधित किया था पाही जी को। प्रच्छन्न चारवाक करके संबोधित करने के लिए जो कारण था, तो उनके सामने ही बात हुई थी, और उनका जो अवधारणा है, आत्म विषयक जो अवधारणा है, और उसमें जो उन्होंने पुनर्जन्म वगैरह की अवधारणा को खंडित किया, तो उसके बारे में यथोपलब्धि व्यवस्था न्याय करके उन्होंने बहुत प्रस्तावित किया है, और उसके आधार पर अपनी चीजों को रखते हुए वो कहते हैं कि नहीं, यथोपलब्धि व्यवस्था न्याय का अनुपालन किया जाए अगर, तो वैशेषिक पदार्थ व्यवस्था का कथित विमर्श इसमें ही वो कहते हैं कि कृतहान और अकृताभ्यागम का हम तो परित्याग स्वीकार करना ही पड़ेगा, क्योंकि कृतहान और अकृताभ्यागम होता है। अब नैयायिक होते हुए कृतहान और अकृताभ्यागम को अगर स्वीकार कर लिया जाए तो फिर ये कैसी व्यवस्था बनेगी, ये एक बड़ी विचित्र सी बात होती है, क्योंकि फिर पुनर्जन्म की भी बात कहीं पर भी रहने जाएगी। और जिसको कि प्रदीप गोखले जी ने जो बहुत अच्छे तरीके से कहा कि ये एक न्याय दर्शन का सेकुलराइजेशन करने का प्रयास है। हालांकि मुझे जो लगता है कि जो न्याय की प्रक्रिया है, न्याय की जो परंपरा है, जो प्रमेय बताए गए हैं, 12 जो प्रमेय बताए गए हैं, आत्म शरीर इंद्रिया तद्दिमना प्रत्यभाव फल दुखा वर्गास्तु प्रमेयम, और जो 16 तत्व बताए गए हैं, उनकी जो प्रक्रिया वहां पर वात्स्यायन ने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से इसको व्याख्यायित किया है कि भाई किनको जानना है, क्योंकि इनको जानने की वजह से, और वो उस क्रम में वहां पर बताते हुए ये कहीं पर भी नहीं लिया गया भाई बात यह है कि कहां तक अनुभव को ले जा रहा है। तार्किक का काम केवल इतना ही नहीं है कि जहां तक अनुभव ले जा रहा है वहीं तक स्वीकृति लेकर के समाप्त हो जाए। तर्क की एक विधा ऐसी हो सकती है, लेकिन तर्क के अल्टरनेटिव मॉडल्स भी हो सकते हैं, और तर्क के भारतीय परंपरा में तर्क के अल्टरनेटिव मॉडल्स हैं। जैसा कि जैन भट्ट ने न्याय मंजरी में कहा है, वो कहते हैं कि 6 न्याय तर्क के प्रस्थान हैं, तर्क के 6 प्रस्थान हैं, षट्तर्की। और काव्य मीमांसा में राजशेखर ने भी इसको बहुत अच्छे तरीके से बताया है कि षट्तर्की है। और तो ऐसी स्थिति में जब षट्तर्की की बात होती है, कौन सा तर्क का प्रस्थान है जो यथोपलब्धि व्यवस्था को लेकर के चलता है? मेरा कहना है कि यथोपलब्धि व्यवस्था न्याय जो ये पूरा का पूरा है, ये चारवाक प्रस्थान का सिद्धांत है, क्योंकि वो अनुभव के परे नहीं जाने वाला, अनुभव की सीमा के अंतर्गत ही लेकर के चलेगा। और जब अनुभव की सीमा के लेकर के चलेगा तो ऐसी स्थिति में उसकी जो स्वीकृति होगी कृतहान और कृताभ्यागम को लेकर के चलेगी।
इसमें एक कहना है जी, अनुभव उपलब्धि के शब्द में प्रत्यक्ष खाली नहीं जाना जाता है,
बिल्कुल ठीक है,
अनुमान दोनों लेके,
बिल्कुल।
तो अगर दोनों लेंगे तो चारवाक नहीं होगा।
नहीं, उसमें कहना है कि जो आन्वीक्षिकी शब्द है, उस आन्वीक्षिकी शब्द के लिए भी एक बड़ी मजेदार बात है, क्योंकि आन्वीक्षिकी करके लोकायत को भी लिया जाता है। आन्वीक्षिकी जो है लोकायत की भी एक परंपरा है, कौटिल्य ने लिया है, सांख्यम योगो लोकायतम च। तो सांख्यम योग और जिस चारवाक को हम जानते हैं उसके बारे में तो कहा जाता है अनुमान को प्रमाण ही नहीं मानता। तो ऐसी स्थिति में उसको आन्वीक्षिकी के अंतर्गत भी लेना है, तो उसको किस प्रकार से लेना है, किस प्रकार से नहीं लेना है। मैं बताना चाहूंगा, मेरी एक किताब प्रकाशित हो रही है अभी, नव चारवाक कारिकावली, उसमें उसकी मैंने सोपर की वृत्ति भी लिखी है और कारिका भी लिखी है। जल्दी ही शायद इस साल के अंत तक प्रकाशित हो जाएगी, तो मैं आपको भेंट करूंगा, देखेंगे आप। तो हमारा ये कहना है, सोचना है कि ये जो संबंध की जो अवधारणा हमारे सामने आती है, और वो संबंध की अवधारणा इसलिए आती है क्योंकि हमारा जो अनुभव है, जो अनुभव माने जो ज्ञान हमारे उसमें आ रहा है, संविदेव भगवती वस्तुपगमेन शरणम, ये कहते हैं वाचस्पति मिश्र। तो अनुभव जिस प्रकार से आ रहा है उसको किस प्रकार से लेकर के चले, और अनुभव के लिए जो प्रमा की जो अवधारणा आ गई, वो जो तद्वति तत्प्रकार को अनुभव जो एक परिष्कृत रूप में आकर के पहुंचता है, उसके मॉडल में जब हम चीजों को, मानक में जब चीजों को लाने की कोशिश करते हैं, तो हमारे लिए फिर पर्याप्त को भी लाना पड़ता है, समवाय को भी लाना पड़ता है, संयोग को भी लेना पड़ता है। यहाँ पर तो प्रश्न ये भी खड़ा हो सकता है कि भाई जैसे अनुभव हमको कहते हैं कि यह तंतुष पटः, उसी तरह से अनुभव तो उल्टा भी हो सकता है कि भाई पटे तंतवः, तो अब पटे तंतवः को लेना है कि यह तंतुष पटः को लेना है, किसको लेना है। अब यहाँ पर ये देखिए कि तंतुष पटः जब हम लेते हैं तो तंतु पहले से है, पट बाद में आता है। तंतवः पहले से तंतु है और पट हमारे सामने बाद में आता है। तो यह तंतुष पटः जो है जब बात करते हैं, माने वो पट एक आगंतुक है, एक उत्पद्यमान है। लेकिन जब हम पटे तंतवः कहते हैं तो दोनों में ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है कि पट पहले से रह रहा हो तंतु बाद में आ रहा हो। तो तंतु को अपनी स्थिति के लिए, जैसे कि एक जगह पर कहते हैं गंगेशोपाध्याय कि उत्पत्ति के लिए, स्थिति के लिए और ज्ञान के लिए जिसकी अपेक्षा होती है वो द्रव्य है। पंक्ति स्मरण अभी नहीं आ रही मुझे। उत्पत्ति के लिए, स्थिति के लिए और ज्ञान के लिए जिसकी अपेक्षा है वो द्रव्य है। तो ऐसी स्थिति में द्रव्य की अपेक्षा है आधार के रूप में। तो आधार के रूप में तंतु को पट की अपेक्षा नहीं, लेकिन पट को तंतु की अपेक्षा है। तो वहां पर एक जो अनुभव आ रहा है यह तंतुष पटः, वो तो प्रमा के रूप में, प्रमा दोनों को लेना पड़ेगा क्योंकि अनुभव अबाधित है, लेकिन एक को एक संबंध से, दूसरे को दूसरे संबंध से हमको लेना पड़ेगा। जैसे कि एक जगह पर हम कहते हैं कि अत्र घटः अस्ति, अत्र घटः नास्ति, दोनों होता है। घटः संयोगेन अस्ति, समवायेन नास्ति। भूतल पर संयोगेन घटः अस्ति परंतु समवायेन घटः नास्ति। तो समवाय संबंध से घट नहीं है भूतल पर, परंतु संयोग संबंध से है। तो संयोग संबंध से घट के रहने पर
इसमें भी अनुभव से, just because of logical necessity, अनुभव को क्या explain कर, to be, in order to be faithful to अनुभव, you have to be unfaithful to it. For example, when there is absence of the cup on the table, the Nyāya-Siddhanta is that Atyanta bhava of the ghata is in the bhutal. That's because ghata samyoga is gone.
No.
But in that same bhutal, when ghata comes, that Atyanta bhava is still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our Anubhav says Atyanta bhava is gone. But Atyanta bhava is nitya. So then what happens? Then they say something which is very much counterintuitive.
Yeah.
That because the ghata samyoga has come, the atyanta bhava, which is still there, that is covered.
तो प्रॉब्लम ये है जो आपने बताया, मैं अभी उस तरफ आने वाला ही था, क्योंकि ये जो जिस रिगल की अपेक्षा की जाती है इस परिस्थिति में जो है दोनों धाराओं को लेकर के, हमारे अनुभव में देखिए बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल तो ऐसे भी मिलते हैं जो वस्तुवाद की तरफ इशारा करते हैं, बहुत सारे ऐसे भी मिलते हैं जो विज्ञानवाद की तरफ इशारा करते हैं। लेकिन दर्शन दोनों तरफ तो नहीं लेके चल सकता। या तो आप ये इस तरह से बनाएं, हम कोई सिद्धांत ही नहीं बनाएंगे, ना तो विज्ञानवाद की तरफ जाएंगे, ना तो अनुभववाद की, वस्तुवाद की तरफ जाएंगे, आप नारायण की तरफ अपना कि हमको कोई सिद्धांत ही नहीं बनाना। लेकिन हमारा जो नेचर है तो हम तो कोई एक सिद्धांत बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं।
unless you are an अनेकांत।
या अनेकांतवादी। तो ऐसी स्थिति में दो ही स्थितियां होती, या तो आप शून्यवादी माध्यमिक बन जाइए या तो अनेकांतवादी बन जाइए। दोनों के अलावा बाकी रहेंगे तो आपको कोई सिद्धांत बनाना है। और ये जो परिस्थितियां चलती हैं उसमें संयोग की भी जरूरत पड़ती है, समवाय की भी जरूरत पड़ती है, पर्याप्त की भी जरूरत पड़ती है। और इस क्रम में ये जो विचार है इन संबंधों के बारे में, ये विचार दार्शनिक रूप से बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण हो जाता है, क्योंकि वो उस दर्शन की जो सुसंगतता है, माने जो दर्शन की मांग है सुसंगत होने की, तो वह जो सुसंगतता है, वह सुसंगतता उसी प्रकार से बन पाती है, विकसित हो पाती है, जब आप उस दर्शन के सिद्धांत को जो उसकी मूल धारा है, उस मूल धारा के परिप्रेक्ष्य में विकसित करने का प्रयास। और भारतीय परंपरा में जो न्याय के आचार्य हैं उन लोगों ने भी यही काम किया, जो अन्य जो दर्शनों के आचार्य हैं उन लोगों ने भी इसी प्रकार का कार्य किया। लेकिन जो हमारे जो पाही साहब हैं, पाही साहब ने भी एक देखने की कोशिश की कुछ एक चीजों की जो धाराओं में, परंपराओं में मिसिंग लगती हैं, लगता है कि वो कहाँ है, किस तरीके से, जैसे कि न्याय की जो परंपरा है, न्याय की जो सिद्धांत किस प्रकार कैसे आ गए, या वैशेषिक की ये जो सार पदार्थवाद का जो सिद्धांत आ गए किस प्रकार से आ गए। तो उनका जो ये कार्य है वो जो विचार की एक परंपरा खोई हुई है, धारा में विलुप्त है, जैसे कि हमारे सामने एक नदी की धारा है और आपको नहीं पता कहाँ से, वो ये देखने का प्रयास करते हैं कि किस प्रकार से वो दर्शन विकसित हो रहा है, क्या उसकी मूल धारा, मूल सिद्धांत क्या हो सकते हैं, मूल प्रतिष्ठापनाएं क्या हो सकती हैं,
लुप्त सरस्वती की
पुनराविर्भाव। तो ऐसी स्थिति में पाही साहब का जो चिंतन है वो निश्चित रूप से हमें प्रेरणा देते रहेगा। एक चीज को कहते हुए मैं अपनी बात को विराम दूंगा। आपने एक बहुत मजेदार बात कही कि यस्तु नाने को पश्चिमी, तो जो अनेक को देखता है या जो अनेक की तरह देखता है। तो न्याय की जो परंपरा है, उदयनाचार्य ने न्याय के लिए चरम वेदांत शब्द का प्रयोग किया है। आत्मतत्व विवेक के समापन के अवसर पर उन्होंने एक बड़ी मजेदार जो है सोपानावली प्रस्तुत की है दर्शनों की, और वो जो सोपानावली है वो इतनी मजेदार है कि वहां पर वो बताते हैं कि अद्वैत वेदांत वगैरह से ऊपर जो है न्याय दर्शन का स्थान है, और उसको वो चरम वेदांत शब्द के प्रयोग से जाते हैं। तो वेदांत जो शब्द है, वेद के अनुयायी जो भी दर्शन है वो भी अपनी व्याख्या इस तरह से कह सकते हैं, कर सकते हैं। और ये जो चरम वेदांत शब्द का प्रयोग है उदयनाचार्य जी के द्वारा, उसमें कि नाना को देखना जरूरी है, तभी हम चरम वेदांती हो सकते हैं। तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं अपनी बात को विराम देता हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। इस तरह से कहना चाहिए कि अरिंदम चक्रवर्ती जी का ये जो व्याख्यान था, इसके लिए हम सब बहुत आभारी हैं, क्योंकि ये आपके विशेष इच्छा और आपके विशेष प्रयास से संभव हो सका है, और उसके लिए हम लोग शायद और बेहतर तरीके से कर सकते थे, लेकिन फिर भी शुरू हम लोगों ने किया और ये आगे भी चलता रहे, ये कामना रहेगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
एक अभूतपूर्व और अद्वितीय संगोष्ठी आज संपन्न हुई है, एक ऐतिहासिक संगोष्ठी है। भाई साहब की जो इच्छा थी कि जो न्याय के प्रति और उनका जो जैसी आज गोष्ठी हुई है, भाई साहब की स्मृति में ये जो व्याख्यान है जो यहाँ प्रस्तुत हुआ, और इसमें जिन लोगों ने किया है वो काफ़ी मतलब मेरे सोच से उनको नमन करता हूँ सबको। सबसे पहले मैं नमन करता हूँ प्रोफेसर श्रीनिवास वरखेड़ी जी का। आज की जो संगोष्ठी है ये इसके सूत्रधार यही हैं। आज की संगोष्ठी में सूत्रधार यही है कि उन्होंने ही ये चाहते थे कि अरिंदम की जो इच्छा है और ये व्याख्यान यहाँ जयपुर में होना चाहिए। क्योंकि व्याख्यान ये दिल्ली में हो सकता था, पर भाई साहब की स्मृति में व्याख्यान होगा तो राजस्थान विश्वविद्यालय के इसी विभाग में होगा। ये इसके लिए मैं बड़ा आभारी हूँ प्रोफेसर श्रीनिवास वरखेड़ी जी का। वो आए और अरिंदम जी को लेके आए, और साथ में सच्चिदानंद जी, और इन तीनों लोगों ने दिल्ली से आए, और ये अभूतपूर्व आयोजन हुआ, जिसके लिए मैं विभाग की ओर से इन सबका सादर प्रदान करता हूँ और धन्यवाद। आज की जो संगोष्ठी है, संगोष्ठी में इसका जितना भी खर्च है वो ICPR के द्वारा दिया गया। सच्चिदानंद जी जो जिन्होंने मेंबर सेक्रेटरी हैं और उनके द्वारा इतनी जल्दी संभव हुआ। बहुत जल्दी योजना बनी और दिसंबर में 12 दिसंबर को करना था। आज का दिन बड़ा पवित्र है। विवेकानंद जी जब आए थे अमेरिका से, 12 दिसंबर को वो आए थे और विवेकानंद जी जब गए थे तो वो राजस्थान से खेतरी से गए थे। खेतरी से गए थे 1893 में गए थे और 1883 में गए थे और 2.5 साल बाद वो आए तो वो 12 दिसंबर का दिन था। वहाँ विवेकानंद जी का सम्मान हुआ खेतरी के अंदर और उन्होंने माना कि वो जो पगड़ी पहनते थे वो पगड़ी भी राजस्थान की थी, खेतरी महाराज की दी हुई थी। उनका जो भी अमेरिका का खत था, अमेरिका जाने वाला खत खेतरी महाराज ने दिया था। तो आज का दिन वहाँ अभी आज भी उत्सव है वहाँ पर कि 12 दिसंबर को उत्सव मनाते हैं कि विवेकानंद जी यहाँ से आज से 35 वर्ष पूर्व हुए उस दिन ये संगोष्ठी आई थी। इसमें जो हमारे विभाग मैं कुछ परिचय रहा हूँ कि पहले बेटे प्रोफेसर श्रीकृष्ण वाली इनका मैं परिचय इसलिए करा रहा हूँ कि ये राजस्थान के मतलब सबसे पहले आई गई है इसमें और इन्होंने जो व्याप्ति सिद्धांत लक्षण तत्वालोक प्रकाश उनका संपादन इन्होंने किया। खड़गदास मिश्र के शिष्य थे और ये वैयाकरण और न्याय काशी हिंदी विश्वविद्यालय में सेशन रहे और राजस्थान विश्वविद्यालय में इन्होंने अध्यापन शुरू किया। बाद में जोधपुर विश्वविद्यालय से सेवा करते और हमारे न्यायिक परंपरा शंकर मिश्र की परंपरा उससे दीक्षित है वैयाकरण और न्याय दोनों में। तो प्रोफेसर इनको भी हम सुनवाई नहीं दे पाए और इनका मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ प्रोफेसर श्रीकृष्ण शर्मा का, जिन्होंने व्याप्ति सिद्धांत लक्षण प्रकाशन किया। तो एक बार रेवा द्विवेदी आए जयपुर में और बिरला फाउंडेशन ने उनको पुरस्कार दिया। तो मैं किताब लेके गया, ये किताब आप देखिए रेवा द्विवेदी जी को, तो किताब लेके गए और फिर दूसरे दिन उन्होंने कहा कि ये जो काम किया जो काम फिलोसफी डिपार्टमेंट ने किया व्याप्ति सिद्धांत लक्षण तत्वालोक प्रकाश, ऐसा काम बहुत काशी में भी नहीं हुआ है। मैं खुद आश्चर्य से कहूँ ये रेवा प्रसाद द्विवेदी के शब्द कि राजस्थान के मुख्यमंत्री को ध्यान देना चाहिए कि फिलोसफी डिपार्टमेंट ने कितना बड़ा काम किया है। तो भाई साहब को मैंने बताया आज मुझे जो मैं कर रहा था उसको कुछ एक प्रोफेसर रेवा प्रसाद द्विवेदी ने इसको प्रमाणिक माना तो उनको संतोष हुआ। तो भाई साहब की तो इच्छा थी, भाई साहब की एक इच्छा और थी जो मैं बताऊंगा अभी कि वो चाहते थे अरिंदम से उनकी कुछ अपेक्षा थी कि वो अटल जैन के ऊपर एक लॉजिक के अनुसार व्याख्या लिखना चाहते थे। वो उनका स्वप्न था। जब मैं सेवा लेने के बाद बोले अब मुझे एक दिन स्वप्न आया है और भाई साहब कहने लगे स्वप्न ये है कि पंडित जी मैं अब किताब पूरी करूंगा। मैं इतने दिन से बैठा था कि अटल जैन के अंदर जो व्याकरण दर्शन है उस पर काम नहीं हुआ। वो कह रहे कि मैं पदार्थ निरूपण में मैंने काम किया पर मेरा असली काम तो अटल जैन जो सिद्धि प्रक्रिया और साध्य प्रक्रिया जो है उस पर काम होना चाहिए था। वो ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण था। वो कहते थे इससे ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है। तो वो चाहते थे कि अरिंदम जी जैसे लोग इसको कर सकते हैं तो कोई नहीं कर सकता। उनका एक स्वप्न था और बोले मुझे लगता है मेरा स्वप्न कभी पूरा होगा। जैसे उनका स्वप्न था कि यहाँ विभाग में उच्च केंद्र बने, वैसे उनका था कि न्याय चले। वेदांत एकदम खिलाफ था, पढ़ा भी बात सही है। एक बार मैं वेदांत की पुस्तक लाया कश्मीर सेवा की पुस्तक थी नंदिकेश्वर काशी का। तो उसमें आई उस शब्द के उसमें लिखे हुए कि आकार ब्रह्मा ब्रह्म है उसका विष्णु है, ई का शक्ति है और हर अवरट ये पंथ वो उसके हैं। भाई साहब देखते मेरे को बड़ा गुस्सा है, मेरी किताब तुम कैसे लाए? ये जो कश्मीर से मिस्ड इंटरप्रिटेशन है क्योंकि नैया इसको कभी नहीं स्वीकार करते। ये दिखाओ पांडु ने कहा है कि आकार ब्रह्म है, ई का शक्ति है, ऊ का माया है और है या ये महाभूत है, ये कहीं नहीं है। तो ये किताब जो है ये प्रमाण युक्त है। भाई साहब कोई प्रमाण को मानते थे, श्रुति भी प्रमाण है नहीं है पर युक्ति प्रमाण का प्रधान था। उनका जो दर्शन था इसी पर टिका हुआ था कि युक्ति प्रधान होती है, श्रुति प्रधान नहीं होती। क्योंकि जो श्रुति की व्याख्या करेंगे तो वो युक्ति से ही होगी। इसलिए जो नैयायी कहेंगे वही वो मत मानते थे और उनके दृढ़ निष्ठा थी कि जितना वैष्णव लॉजिक में उतना इंडियन लॉजिक में वो दोनों को बराबर मानते थे। उनकी जो किताब थी वो करीब 125 पेज उन्होंने इंग्लिश में लिखे हैं। वो आईसी पास से निकालना चाहते हो पूरी नहीं हुई, 2-3 चैप्टर रह गए लास्ट में। तो 125 पेज करीब उन्होंने इंग्लिश में लिखा था। बाद में इस पुस्तक के बाद में लिखा ये जो किताब थी इसकी आज चर्चा हुई वैशेषिक पदार्थ। हाँ तो कहते हैं ये मैडम बैठे प्रोफेसर कुसुम जैन जी, ये इनके द्वारा इनके सहयोग ये बात के साथ में न्यूज शुरू किया था पदार्थ निरूपण का अनुवाद। पहले पदार्थ निरूपण का अनुवाद हुआ और जो मैडम और दोनों ने यहाँ बाढ़ से प्रकाशित हुआ रामचंद्र बंदे की टीका के साथ में। बाद में भाई साहब इसकी भूमिका लेते थे। ये किताब भूमिका है किसकी? पदार्थ निरूपण की। ये भूमिका ही है। तो फिर बाद में से कितनी निकाली ये भूमिका इतनी बड़ी हो गई है, आप तो भूमिका लिख रहे हो और कई साल लगे इसको लिखने में, भाई साहब अलग से पाएगा, क्योंकि ये पद्धति मूलक अध्ययन उन्होंने शुरू किया था। तो पद्धति मूलक अध्ययन तो शुरू किया, जो तपस्या है भाई साहब की, वो एक भूमिका है, ये पता करते लोगों की उन्होंने भूमिका ही लिखी दरअसल में, ये वैसा नहीं था। तो वो विचार देना चाहते थे कि हमें, और एक दो बात उपादान निरपेक्ष प्रत्यय जो है वो उन्होंने इंग्लिश वाली किताबें लिखे हैं, वो प्रिंट नहीं हुई उधर, वो हाथी की तरफ वो उनके परिवार की बात है। तो ये जो हमारी प्रक्रिया है, ये प्रक्रिया आप लोगों के सहयोग से ये आगे चल सकती है और भाई साहब की इच्छा पूरी हो। और यहाँ जो इस संगोष्ठी में पधारे, मैं मैडम प्रोफेसर संजय जी का, प्रोफेसर ओम प्रकाश जी का, और प्रोफेसर हमारे गुरु जी के शर्मा जी बैठे हैं, प्रोफेसर कमल नाइन जी बैठे हैं, जो शैलेश जी साहब के पुत्र हैं। एक बार खड़े हुए थे कमल नाइन जी, ये देव शल्य के पुत्र हैं कमल नाइन शर्मा, ये इतिहास के प्रोफेसर हैं, और आगे से प्रोफेसर के शर्मा जी बैठे हैं। तो ये सब जो हमारा डिपार्टमेंट था उसके लोग बैठे हैं, प्रोफेसर राजेंद्र जी और प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर सी वी शर्मा जी। डॉक्टर सी वी शर्मा जी जो है ये आईजी रहे हैं, और आईजी रहे हैं, उसमें आईपीएस थे, और ये हमारे विभाग के विद्यार्थी भी रहे हैं, और इन्होंने एमए वगैरह।
परिचय मेरा यही है, मैं इसका विद्यार्थी रहा हूँ। और दूसरा ये है, मेरा प्रोफेसर साहब से आपसे है, मेरा प्रश्न है कि उत्तर से मैं संतुष्ट नहीं हूँ, पर मैं आपसे अलग से उत्तर करूँगा, क्योंकि मॉडर्न टाइम के अंदर फिलोसफी को यदि वर्चुअल रियलिटी, ऑगमेंटेड रियलिटी से इसके परिप्रेक्ष्य में इसको नहीं करेंगे तो शोध है तो वो अधूरा रह जाएगा। ये मेरा अपना।
और इनका मैं इसलिए परिचय दे रहा हूँ वरखेड़ी साहब कि इन्होंने 3-4 करोड़ रुपये लगाकर संस्कृत डिपार्टमेंट बनाया यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर, तो वो इनकी संस्कृत के बच्चे को विभाग है,
वो नहीं बताएं आप, वो नहीं बताएं।
ओके। इसके अलावा जो लोग बैठे हैं, कौशलेंद्र दास जी और उर्मिला जी और आनंद कुमार जी, जो तो मैं देख पा रहा हूँ, उन सबका मैं नसीम काली जी और नारायण भस्मने जी, तो मैं सबका नाम लीजिए, तो टीम लोग चले गए हैं। कुछ लोग अभी इसमें इंटरनेट से जुड़े हुए हैं, तो इंटरनेट से जुड़े हुए हैं प्रोफेसर जीएल साहब, न्यूजीलैंड से जुड़े हुए हैं प्रोफेसर दिलीप मोहन जी कलकत्ता यूनिवर्सिटी से, प्रोफेसर पीपी गोखले पुणे से, प्रोफेसर एलडी सेबेस्टियन आईआईटी बम्बई, प्रोफेसर पी जेटली बम्बई, प्रोफेसर डेनियल रेवे, प्रोफेसर गणेश दास गोदावरी मिश्र, प्रोफेसर ललित तालमी, प्रोफेसर शिवानी शर्मा चंडीगढ़, प्रोफेसर अंबिका शर्मा, प्रोफेसर रेखा नवनीत, प्रोफेसर मोनिका भा, और विभाग के जितने भी लोग हैं जिनके कारण ये आज संगोष्ठी संपन्न हुई, हमारे कुलपति जी अविन हैनी, प्रोफेसर अरविंद विक्रम सिंह जी, अनुभव जी, इन लोगों ने अथक प्रयास करके इस संगोष्ठी को संपन्न किया। डॉक्टर मनीष सिन्हा, नीश गोरवाल जी, विनीता जी और विमल कटियार जी जो है वो बीजेपी स्टेट मीडिया के प्रदेश अध्यक्ष रहे और इस विभाग के बहुत पुराने विद्यार्थी रहे। उनका भी मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ। छोटे से नंबर से थे कटियार जी, और करीब 30-35 वर्ष की बात हो गई है। तो और भी जो लोग बैठे हुए इनके नाम नहीं जान पा रहा हूँ, और उन सबका विद्यार्थियों का, यहाँ के अध्यापकों का, और जिनका नाम भूलकर क्षमा चाहता हूँ, सब अपने नाम ले करके, और आपकी ये संगोष्ठी का धन्यवाद जो है दे रहा हूँ, तो छूट के इसके लिए क्षमा चाहता हूँ।
I would like now to invite Dr. Narayan Bhusme, Jagadguru Ramanand, Sanskrit University, for Shanti Path.
Om तच्छंयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजम् शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ओम नमो ब्रह्मणे नमो अस्तु भग्नये नमः पृथिव्यै नमो ओषधी वाचे नमो वाचस्पतये नमो विष्णवे बृहते करोमि ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्परिजमा शन्नो इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति 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 ॐ सहनामवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
हो गया दो मंदिर ना चारों तरफ लौटो आप चुप
I would request everyone to please stand for national anthem.